Welcome to GenXAdulting, and today we have Brooke with us. Welcome.
Hello.
Our first question is always, what year were you born?
2001.
Okay, so you're Gen Z.
Mm-hmm.
You are definitely you're like right there.
100%.
Okay, so
So she's not a zillennial, she's Gen Z.
Some people put the 2000, 2001, 2002 people into the zillennials, but I find that once you are born in 2000, you really, they seem to identify more and relate more with just Gen Z.
Yeah.
You know,
I accept my fate, you know?
I think Gen Z is awesome.
Exactly.
I love Gen Z women. I think Gen Z women are just such a hope for our future. So I think it's awesome. And where were you born?
I was born in Dearborn, Michigan.
No way.
Yeah.
So my family's from Dearborn, Michigan.
Really?
Yeah, I'm Armenian.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so there's like a lot of Armenians there, and my great grandparents started there. I think it was them started there, and then everyone branched off. But my dad was born there. I was born in Michigan. I was born in Pontiac.
Oh, really?
Not to put it on to me, but I never meet anyone born in Dearborn, Michigan.
It's like a once in a blue moon thing.
So you're not Middle Eastern though, are you?
No, I'm 100% Polish. I'm like the whitest of the white.
Okay. So is there a big Polish community in Dearborn?
Not that I know of. It's just my grandparents are from Grand Rapids, and they're really Polish. And I feel like the more up in Michigan you get, the more, you know,
the more Polish you get.
Yeah, I was gonna say like the more like you get super white people.
Yeah, that's true.
You burn in the sun like the second you step out.
Yeah. So why Dearborn? Who was in Dearborn? Do you know?
I don't really know. I know my mom and my biological father, they moved there right around like after they got married, and then they stayed there, had me, and then once they got that divorce, they moved to Florida. So that's all I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So were they from Michigan?
Yeah. My mom's from, I believe, Lansing.
Yeah.
I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
My dad, no idea.
Okay. But somewhere in Michigan.
Yeah, somewhere there.
Did you ever go up north? Oh no, you were so little. You probably have no memories of Michigan.
No memory whatsoever.
And
no.
did you ever go back and visit Michigan?
We go every summer. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Do you know where Bear Lake is?
No. Is that up
I
north?
feel like I've heard of it.
Okay.
It's beautiful though. It's like you go out there and it's actually like the sticks, no service, no just lakes, and then it's gorgeous. I don't even know how else to say it.
Up north is amazing. My dad lived on Burt Lake. It's another random lake, Burt Lake.
I feel like I've heard of it though.
He lived in Indian River. I don't know if you've heard of Indian. No, there's like so many little towns, but he was up there for a few years, and I think that was when he was the happiest of his life. He loved up north.
The upper UP is beautiful too. I love it up there.
Yep. Have you been to Mackinac Island?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I love that place. My parents had their honeymoon on Mackinac Island.
Yeah. Did they go to the Grand Hotel? Do you know? That's like that famous hotel.
I want to say
it's all white.
I want to say they did, and they went through like they had like some scary maze back in the day on Mackinac Island that they were hyping up when I was younger.
Yeah. So Mackinac Island is absolutely just the most special place. I love it.
It really is.
So how old were you when they moved? So did they get a divorce in Michigan, or?
I want to say, they did get a divorce in Michigan. And then when my mom found out she was pregnant with my sister, my mom moved us down to Florida. So I was probably like 1.5, 2.
So what was her decision making there to come to Florida?
It was kind of, in my opinion, I think it was just to get away from my dad, but then he followed her.
Okay.
He went down to Florida with her, and then he ended up moving. I don't know if you guys know where Cape Coral is.
Oh yeah.
He moved to Cape Coral, and we moved to Fort Myers, Estero area.
Okay.
So
those are like right next to each other.
Exactly. And my mom's like, oh God.
So when you guys first came down, she moved to Fort Myers
with my grandparents, because they were living up in Ocala at the time. So then my mom was like, let's just all move down to Fort Myers.
And then shortly thereafter, your dad followed. So did she instigate the divorce, I assume, then?
That's the thing that is always just like so iffy. Both sides say like I did, and then the other person's like, no, I did. And I'm like, guys, listen, it's not like a win-win situation.
Right. But then he followed down. And then were they able to keep an amicable relationship?
No, never.
Okay.
Never.
All right. So then what was your exposure to him during those years?
So those years, it was kind of like he came around when he wanted to. And like my mom was pretty much playing like the role as like a single parent living with her parents at the time. And my dad, he would like it was so weird. They tried to set like a set
That's okay.
schedule for like with the courts or whatever, like Christmas, holidays, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
My dad would like only pick like what holiday he wanted, wouldn't tell my mom, so my mom's just kind of like left in the dark with that. But then he would turn around and take her to court saying that she's the reason that he can't have me on the holidays, when my mom's like, no, that's not the case whatsoever.
Right.
Yeah.
So he was playing a game
100%.
to just kind of, sounds like, torment her a little bit.
Exactly.
during
That's
that
like
time.
his favorite thing to do, was just like drive her up a wall at all times.
Now, were both you and your sister his?
No.
Okay.
That's a funny story. My sister is my dad's old friend's kid.
Your biological dad's
Yeah.
friend's child.
Yeah.
So she got pregnant before Michigan. And when she moved down, did her dad come down to Florida?
No, her dad, if I remember this correctly, got arrested shortly thereafter for, I think, meth dealing.
Okay.
So he's been in a jail for a long time.
So
Oh,
she
no
doesn't
kidding.
have a relationship.
She doesn't even know who he is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And
So-
but she knows of him.
She knows of him now, but yeah,
Right.
growing up until probably like 14, she didn't know who he was.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then did you have a father figure in your life in those formative years?
You could call my grandpa my father figure. My mom ended up meeting somebody from a friend when we moved down to Fort Myers named Lee. He's now my stepdad.
Okay.
He was there since I was probably like 4 years old. My sister was 2. And at first I hated him. I thought he was the worst thing ever, because he was trying to be my dad. And I was
Yeah.
like, hardcore, you're not my dad. Stop acting like it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it took me until I was probably like 15.
So even
Makes sense.
starting,
Yeah.
yeah, even starting at 4,
Mm-hmm.
you were digging in
Mm-hmm.
because your biological dad was making appearances,
Mm-hmm.
and those were probably very exciting for you,
It was.
especially because he was like a novelty.
Yeah, it was kind of like it made me want to be around him more, but I couldn't, you know? And so I honestly, growing up, I was always like, oh, I just want to live with my dad. Like, that's all I want. I don't want to live with my mom, when in reality, you
Right.
know, it shouldn't have been that.
Right, right. So what during those years when Lee entered your life
Mm-hmm.
and your dad was making appearances, did your dad make consistent appearances, or was there a period where you stopped seeing him for a while?
Oh, it'd be like it would be like he'd go like a year without seeing me, and then appear again, and then try and try and try for like months, and then just give up again. And then it was like him calling me late at night being like, oh, like, when am I going to see you again? It's like, where did you go?
Right, right. So it was
Yeah.
very sporadic, and
was.
it probably created some trust issues
It really did.
for you, especially
Mhm.
with men.
Big time.
So yeah, and I can relate to this.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of a similar background. So was Lee consistent?
Always. He never really left the picture. They were together now at like, I want to say when they didn't move in together until probably like 2 years in, but he moved all the way from California down to Florida. He made a huge commitment
wow.
to my mom. They moved in together.
How did they meet?
My mom's best friend Alana growing up said, hey, we're going over to California. You come with us. I believe, if my story's not mixed up. And they went up to California. She introduced my mom to Lee from like her boyfriend at the time.
So they were just like on vacation
Yeah.
in California.
Mhm.
And they met and hung out, and it was that much of an impression
Mm-hmm.
and long distance back then would have been
Crazy.
letters
Yeah, pretty
and
much.
landline phone calls.
Yes.
If I can, I mean, are we talking like
Really?
what, 80s,
I was
90s?
no.
No, this is
no,
2000s.
No, I was born at this point.
Yeah.
I was 4 years old.
true,
Yeah.
we're in
true.
2005
Yeah, we're in
It was like the
2005.
flip phone.
Okay, flip
Yeah.
phone,
The
flip
flip
phone.
phone, there you go,
No, I
there.
was thinking back when we were growing up. No, so you're right.
No,
This
she's
is
young.
yeah. So flip phone where you press the button like 3 times to get an A or
Exactly.
okay, so
Yeah.
they were at least able to text.
Yeah.
Okay, and then he made that commitment to
Mhm.
come over.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
I know.
And then was it a pretty stable childhood, would you say, with your mom and Lee?
It was. They were. So I know that the beginning of their relationship was a little rocky. Just because they were trying to figure it out, like Lee has no kids whatsoever, and he was
Okay.
now getting introduced to having 2 kids, and he was like, they were just going back and forth. I believe there was a part where they were on and off for a little while there.
Mm-hmm.
But besides that, really, they were always kind of together. It's always been like really, I've known them as them. Even when they were broken up, I would still see Lee at the time, unfortunately, because I didn't like him.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, my grandparents, they weren't a fan of him either. They thought that he was terrible. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to feed off of what you guys are telling me because I'm a child.
As it happens, as that happens, definitely. Was there a particular reason though you think your grandparents weren't a fan?
So my grandparents are Mormon. They're hardcore to the bone Mormon, and all they wanted was my mom to marry like somebody who was also Mormon, because their other two kids did the same thing. They married somebody who was Mormon. And when Lee came into the picture, he didn't really have like a side to choose. Like he didn't have a religion that he was set in, and they like hated that. They were like, no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And it took them just as long as me to like actually like him.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So were you raised Mormon?
I was. I didn't get baptized Mormon until I was about, I want to say 12 years old.
Okay.
But I remember like my earliest memories was in the Mormon Church and stuff like that.
Okay. So how would you compare growing up in the Mormon Church to, how would you explain that to somebody who maybe grows up Jewish or grows up Catholic? Like, are there stark differences, you would say?
In my opinion, there was like a whole bunch of differences. Like right off the bat, once you're, I think it's like 8 years old, they start like making sure it's like engraved in your brain that like you are supposed to stay at home and cook and clean, and like that's your only God-given duty to do. And so they literally have a camp called the Young Women's Camp where you go and you learn how to cook and clean and take care of the house. And I had to do that from the age of, what was that? I think it's 13 to 18. You could just go to a camp every summer for like 2 weeks in the middle of the forest, and you just like sit in these like little cabins and you just try to learn how to be the proper wife to them.
So where is this camp located?
So they have one like all over this, like the United
everywhere.
States. Yeah, they're everywhere. But the one I went to was in Fort Myers.
Oh, so not far from home.
Mm-mm.
So, but you didn't come home in between. You went and spent the night at the camp.
Yeah, it was 2 straight weeks of just learning.
Learning.
That had to have been, how did you reconcile that? Because your mom wasn't Mormon, right?
So she was raised Mormon too.
She was.
She just didn't follow it very strictly. So the reason I didn't get baptized until I was 12 was because like my mom, she was always iffy about it. My real dad, oh my God, don't even get me started on that. He was like, I'm Catholic. You're not getting baptized Mormon, da 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 da. So then we never went through with it. But until like my mom went to rehab, then I like, I was stuck with my grandparents, and they were like, well, you gotta.
Okay. So let's backtrack.
Yeah.
So your mom went to rehab. Okay. So there was some substance abuse issues here with just your mom?
All 3 of my parents.
All 3 of you. So when your parents were in Dearborn, were there substance abuse issues there?
I want to say yes. I don't know because I was so young at that point, but my dad's kind of always had a really bad problem with drugs and alcohol. And my mom was really only, I want to say alcohol, and my stepdad was drugs and alcohol as well.
Okay. And so then when you were in Florida growing up, you were still, so your stepdad and your mom, there was substance abuse going on.
Oh yeah.
Through your formative years.
All the time. Yeah.
What kind of substance?
My stepdad, I believe he just was like hooked on Adderall.
Okay.
And looking back on it, it's kind of crazy because I would wake up for school and he'd be, funniest thing now, but back then it wasn't funny,
right.
But he'd be up playing the Wii at like 6 a.m. just locked in. And I'm always like looking at him like, you just got up to play the Wii? Right. No, he's been up all night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I'm sure that was just such a stark contrast between your mom and your stepdad, and then with the substance abuse, and then your grandparents were so Mormon, and then being sent to this camp in the summer to learn how to be a wife and a mother. But really your home life is going against everything in some ways. The church is, because you're not supposed to drink or do drugs in the church. Is that correct? You can't even drink
coffee. Like it's very strict.
No kidding.
Okay.
No tea, no coffee,
I
energy
can't become
drinks.
a Mormon.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I can't be Mormon anymore.
Yeah.
So it's no tea, no coffee, no alcohol, no drugs.
No drugs, no tattoos. You can't show your shoulders. You can't show your knees. You have to, this was my favorite one growing up as a teenager. If you have a boyfriend before the age of 16, you have to sit down with the bishop and explain why you should have a boyfriend or you should be allowed to date. And then once you turn 16, you have to go on chaperone dates with your parents. And you can't have a serious relationship until you're 18 years old.
And then when you have the serious relationship, do they assume this is a relationship for marriage pretty much?
They expect you to pretty much get married within the year. It's crazy.
So how do you think the religion matches up with society now? Do you think a lot of young people are leaving the religion?
In my opinion, yeah. I mean, with social media and everything, you're like, you see like how other people live, and that's nowhere near what like Mormons are supposed to.
Right.
And I've realized like a lot of my friends growing up that I met through the Mormon religion, they just don't go anymore. They don't really abide by those rules anymore either. So
it's very strict.
Yeah, I would assume
it's so strict.
You just brought up such a great point, though. I would assume social media in some ways has affected the Mormon religion extremely as far as keeping young people in the church.
Exactly. I don't know if you guys heard about this, but there's this this show that just came out on Hulu. It's called, I think, The Mormon Wives or something like that.
Yeah.
And like The Secret Life of the Mormon Wives or something like that.
Yeah.
Where these girls are absolutely not abiding by a single Mormon law, but they call themselves Mormon.
Right.
And so there's been like a huge increase in people like saying that they're Mormon but not abiding by any of the rules, and it's driving like the hardcore Mormons insane. And I think it's kind of funny. In my opinion.
Are they the ones? I think I've seen them on social media. Like they look kind of like Real Housewives,
yeah,
right?
they have like 5 different baby daddies. And
yeah.
I was gonna say they're doing like sex parties and
they
stuff,
are.
right? Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
But then are they going to church? Like, are they in the Mormon church?
Barely.
Yeah, but so they're just kind of saying, I wonder if that's just all part of the shtick.
I think that's
like the show.
Exactly.
Yeah. But then is the hardcore, then you have the real far extremes where it's the polygamists and they've been accused of child abuse and sex abuse and all that. So you have that sect. And then you have probably just the regular Mormons who have been functioning fine. And then social media showed up and you've got a whole television show, kind of a parody in some ways. And then you also have all your young people seeing social media and having FOMO. And they're probably, I'm wondering how it's affecting.
Same thing's going on in with the Amish folks. Right? They're the
really?
same. Yeah.
I've been seeing a lot of Amish people start using their phones, posting on social media, and it's like, but you guys are against technology.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting how, and that's where with Catholics, we're just like, whatever.
Yeah, right.
You know, and if you do something
to
bad,
my dad, right?
If you do something bad, just go to confession, start all over. It's fine.
Exactly.
And they drink, so it all works out. Okay, so you had this contrasting life of living at home with some dysfunctionality, your dad popping in, popping out, your grandparents wanting this Mormon life for you, this very straight-laced life for you. What made you to decide, what did you say, at age 14 you accepted Lee and you didn't have issues with him?
I want to say it was like 14 or 15. I finally was just like, all right, I don't have a choice. He's been here for so long. Like, I guess I gotta like this guy. And my dad was just like so in and out at that point where I was just like, all right, well, guess you're gonna be my stepdad then. Like,
so you accepted
I'll finally accept you.
And probably he wasn't, sounds like he couldn't have been the worst person then, right? Yeah.
No, at that point, at that age, he was sober for, I want to say, like 8 years. So.
Okay. So, yeah, what age were you when your mom went to rehab?
So, my mom went to rehab when I want to say I was either 12 or 13. And it was kind of eye-opening because when you're a kid, you don't really realize that your parents have a problem. You just think, like, oh, that's just how mom works, right?
Yeah.
And it took my grandparents kind of sitting me down being like, no, your mom has, like, a real problem. Like, she's going to go away for a little while. And I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
My mom was fine.
Yeah. Was it mainly alcohol, you said?
I want to say, yeah. I've never heard anything else. So
it's very easy to be a high functioning alcoholic.
Exactly.
Especially for women, because we take on so much and we just keep going. And so many people wouldn't even know if somebody's drunk during that time or drinking.
Exactly.
You know, and if you drink enough on a regular basis, you're not even really drunk. You're just kind of functioning.
Yeah, you're
functioning.
alcoholic.
Was there an event that happened that said you've got to go to rehab, or because you're describing high function, this is across the threshold?
So we were living in Jupiter, Florida at this point now.
Okay.
My stepdad has been out of rehab for X amount of years. I don't remember at this point. And my mom, she always kept like a huge handle of, I think it was her drink of choice was Smirnoff, right? So my stepdad was like, that handle is like almost gone. And like I can't be around somebody who is an alcoholic for my sobriety. And he kind of like said, I hate to say this, but you guys gotta go. And he kicked my mom and my sister and I out. And he said, you got to figure it out. I'm not going to be with somebody that's an alcoholic. Right. So then the next day, my grandparents literally show up and they take us down to Fort Myers. And my mom's like, well, I'm not an alcoholic, so I'm not going to go to rehab. My grandparents like, no, you need to go to rehab. And then it didn't hit me that she actually had a problem until she started hiding it in Windex bottles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was like a real problem. And the problem with the Fort Myers rehab was I don't think they had a detox center, so they made you detox at home. And I had to take care of her while she was detoxing. And I'm telling you, it's like the most terrifying thing you could ever go through.
Absolutely.
And how old are you at this point?
I want to say I was like 12 or 13.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy.
Yeah. So like
that's crazy.
I will always say this, like she looks like the devil was coming out of her.
Yeah.
Like, the whole time I'm just sitting there, I'm like, oh my God, she's telling me things like that no kid should hear come out of their mom's mouth. And I'm just sitting there like, what is going on? Like 5 days ago, I thought you were a normal person. And now you're like screaming at me. I'm like, holy shit.
And then physically, I'm sure she was getting sick.
Yeah, she was in so much pain, throwing up, and it really broke my heart. But,
that's a traumatic
physical
experience.
Withdrawal from the alcohol. And vodka's potent.
Yeah.
Vodka's a drug.
She also went to the hospital a few weeks prior to that because I forgot what the disease is, but it's when your legs swell up so bad.
Like edema or something?
Yeah, kind of like that, but it was from the alcohol, and they almost had to cut her legs off.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And my mom was like, okay, I'll cut back on the drinking, and unfortunately she didn't, so then...
Wow, so she was drinking that much. There was a risk she could have died through withdrawal. I think it's supposed to be supervised by a doctor when it's to that degree. It's kind of crazy that they put you and your grandparents, I guess, in charge. Wow. So then she was expected to go through withdrawal.
I think it's a 24-hour period, and then you just go in. So the next day my grandparents drove her down. And
how long was she there?
I want to say she was there for about 2-3 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because insurance, huge thing.
Yeah.
If they don't want to cover it, you're going to have to pay a whole bunch out of pocket. And my grandparents didn't have that kind of money.
Yeah.
Neither did my mom.
Right.
Again, she was spending all of her money on alcohol at the time.
Was she working?
She was always in and out of jobs.
Okay.
At that time, I believe she was working as a front desk or a hair wash person at a hair salon. Yeah.
Just to backtrack, Fort Myers to Jupiter. What was the reasoning why you guys went to Jupiter?
My stepdad, he works down in Miami, and the Fort Myers to Miami trek he didn't want to make. So he chose Jupiter instead.
That's a haul too, though.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I was like, you guys chose Jupiter, but I guess his office is based out of Delray or Boynton or something like that. So he was like, oh, I can stop there and then go to Miami.
Okay, that makes sense.
Having to loop all the way around and keep going.
Yeah, that makes sense.
A quick question. Yeah. What's the age difference between you and your mom?
My mom, she's 49. Well, she's turning 49 this month. I won't dock that year off of her. And then I'm 23. So
okay.
She wasn't 26.
Yeah, that's how old I was when I had Nathan. Yeah. So she went through rehab for 2 to 3 months, and you and your sister were with your grandparents during that time. So during that time, were you really immersed then into the Mormon Church?
It was balls to the wall right after.
Yeah, because they had you all to themselves.
They were like, oh, this is perfect.
Yeah. So were you going to church every week? Is it once a week or is it multiple times a week?
So it's Wednesdays. You go for the kids, they go there and they do whatever games or, learning activity that they have. And then you go to church on Sundays for 3.5 hours.
Wow. And then is this in addition to going to school? So on Wednesdays, when would you go? Before or after school?
After school, around 5 p.m.
Okay. All right. Did you get a big social circle from that?
Yes and no. I never really got along with them because I've never really loved the Mormon outlook or their rules. So I was always the bad apple.
Right. Even at that age, at 12, 13, 14, you were
just I don't know about this.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm just curious. Did you ever have a point where you're like, I can kind of jive with this? Or were you always in it somewhat rebelling? Did it ever resonate at all?
So when I first started going, I was like, oh, I can get used to this. And then once I turned 13, that's when you go to this young women's group thing. And I went to the first year of the camp and I was like, oh, this isn't too bad. You get to hang out with all these girls. mean girls because,
Yeah.
you know, they're better than you because they know more
What
in
a
the
trip. So
Book
that's
of
going
Mormon.
on.
There's a hierarchy probably.
And I didn't read the Book of Mormon. I know I said I did back in the day, but I promise you, I barely read that.
It's like saying you read the Bible. Like,
I know.
I haven't read the Bible.
Oh, you should see. They gift you a Bible, like a huge Bible, probably this thick, with like half of it's the Book of Mormon and the rest is just a normal Bible.
Yeah.
And you get these strings, and it's like there's like, I forgot the list, but it's like gratitude. If you like show that you have a great amount of gratitude, you get a string. And if you collect all the strings by the time you're 18, you get this necklace that is like supposed to be like, you're pure.
Oh my goodness. But who decides who gets the string?
The bishop.
And how does he know? Does he have like spies watching you to make sure who's grateful or has the most gratitude?
So when you enter the high school years, you have to go to Mormon school every morning from, I believe, 5 a.m. until 7 when you go into school. And it was insane. My grandparents still forced me to go, even though my mom was back in the picture.
Okay.
I would sleep through the entire thing. I didn't have any of those strings. I wanted them, but I wasn't willing to put the work in for
How do I
it.
steal one?
Because I'm like, I'm a piece of shit high schooler. Okay,
Right. You're normal high school. You're normal high school.
I already have to like do all my homework. You want me to also do that? I'm like, no.
When do you sleep? Where do you find the time for everything with these kids? If they have to be there from 5 to 7 and then go to high school, I can't even imagine. Were there kids though that were there and paying attention?
Balls to the wall. Oh
really?
My God, it was insane. Like these people would sit there and the teacher would ask a question, me slumped out on the desk, just passed out. Everybody's like, oh, I know. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Wow.
Listen, overachiever.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. No, but it's almost like just wanting that validation, that acceptance, and a competition to see who's the best
Who's the best Mormon
of them all. Right. So what was that, like 9th grade?
That was 9th grade until 12th grade. You're supposed to go, yeah.
And how long did you go?
9th grade.
9th grade. Okay. So your mom.
I was going to say, when did you rebel? When?
I want to say it was like halfway through sophomore year. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. My mom's like, I'll take your car away. I'm like, you can. I don't care.
So she returned back from rehab and you guys kept living with your grandparents.
Oh, yeah.
And Lee was still over in Jupiter. Were they still married during this time?
So they've never been married, actually. Fun fact. They've been dating for 22 years now.
But they're still together.
Yeah.
Okay.
They call each other husband and wife, you know. It's just not on the books.
Right.
Which is fine. That works.
Yeah, of course.
But they were still, at this time, it was like, my mom was so hurt about him like kicking us out and stuff because that's a lot to do on her and her kids. So my mom was like on and off. They were like talking, but they weren't together, right? He was like he was Avery's only, my younger sister's father figure. So my mom was like, you can come and see her, you can come visit her, but like respectfully keep your distance. And then they ended up getting back together. So
speaking of your sister, how did she feel about the Mormon Church? Was she similar?
Was better than me. I'm going to be honest. Until up until probably sophomore year too. She gave it her all her freshman year. My grandparents were like, you're doing so good. I'm so proud of you. They'd look at me and be like, what are you doing? Okay. Get it together. I'm like, guys, I'm not going. I'm not waking up at 4 a.m. and then going to school after that.
Yeah.
And what's the age difference between you and your sister?
2 years.
2, okay.
Yeah.
So you were living with your grandparents and your mom, still doing the Mormon thing through 9th grade. And then through mid-sophomore year, still living with your grandparents and your mom. And how hard was it when you decided to stop going to those classes? How hard was it for you at home?
Oh my God. Well, I should say like I never got along with my like parents or my grandparents when I was growing up because I think it was just like with my dad and all that other thing. Like I was rebelling against them because I was like, you guys are the problem. Okay. My dad's not the problem. Right. Because I wanted to, see what it was going to be like to live with him. And they never gave me that chance. And I was always so mad at them because I'm like, you guys, first of all, you made me become Mormon. Okay.
Right.
I didn't want this, but I did it for you guys to make you happy.
Yeah.
I hated it. So then I started rebelling against it. And then if I didn't go to church, freak out. And I'm like, guys, I'm over it. Okay. All my parents, I'd get in fights with them and then I'd be grounded for months. Oh my God.
Yeah.
My mom loved pulling that grounding card.
Yeah. Because even though she had a lifestyle of abuse, she was probably thinking maybe if you are Mormon, it would help you not follow in those footsteps.
No,
you
exactly.
think? And maybe it would give you some parameters to work within and and maybe you wouldn't party or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So she was,
Did the complete opposite.
I
Thanks,
was
Mom.
going to say it.
did it make you want to party more?
Yeah, it did, because when I'd go to high school, I'd have all these friends that were always going to parties, sneaking out at night, or like skipping school. And I was like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
Nobody does this in the Mormon religion.
Right.
I'm going to do it.
So when did you start that? Was it when you mid sophomore year when you walked away? Were you doing that? Were you partying at all before then?
Mm-mm. It was mid sophomore year, right when I stopped going. I was like the worst kid you could imagine. My mom was always getting calls from the school saying, hey, she didn't show up today. My mom's like, where were you? I was like, oh, I just showed up late. No, I just didn't go.
Yeah.
And then sneaking out. Oh my God, the amount of times my grandpa would wake up in the middle of the night, check my room, and I wasn't there. Oh boy.
So you were
No
hanging
kidding.
out with your friends,
Yeah.
partying.
Yeah. We would just sneak over to this one person's house always, because their parents were just kind of like the same. They just didn't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was the same thing all the time.
And would you say, so you would say that was a big rebellion,
A huge rebellion. Yeah.
not just against being in the church, but also about them not letting you live with your dad? Would you say just kind of all culminated in that moment of your
Yeah.
life?
It was like everything. I was kind of taking everything that happened to me as like a child and as like a teenager, and I bundled it all up into one, and it was like, you guys are the problem.
Right, right, right. And so was it just drinking?
I started, yeah, it was drinking at first, and then I started smoking weed when I was a teenager. I don't do that anymore because it's just, I have anxiety.
Right.
Okay.
I think that happens to pretty much everyone
Yeah,
once they
yeah.
become an adult.
Literally.
They're like, I'm overthinking everything. I have to stop this.
I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh God. I'm over-
Even if you have the most perfect life, you find something you need to worry about
Yeah.
as
Fixate
an
on
adult.
something.
Exactly.
Yeah, you fixate.
So yeah, it was just, I was huge on smoking weed. Me and my friend Sammy, we would just always just get caught by my mom, and she'd be like, guys, you need to get it together. You guys are glazed over. And I was like, you're the problem.
that's awesome.
So did that go on for the rest of high school?
I honestly, I think it only, so the problem here was my mom, well, I shouldn't even say my mom. My mom wasn't at the house at the time, but the reason why I had to get moved back up to Jupiter my sophomore year, the other reason why I had
Okay.
to, stop going to Mormon school or whatever, I decided it was a great idea to sneak 11 people in my house in the middle of the night. Thought I
11
wasn't going to get
people.
caught, right? Great idea. Best part is we were just sitting around watching a movie in my mom's room because she was out of town. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. They're not going to check in here. The movie ends, whatever. Grandpa walks in the door right when the movie ends. And I'm like, oh, no. My grandpa loses his mind. People are like, oh, shit.
Oh my gosh.
So then my grandpa goes, I'm done with you. Like, your mom's going to talk to you in the morning and we're going to figure something out. And literally like 3 days later, I was moved to
Just you?
Jupiter. Yeah, it was just me and my
And
sister.
how old were you then at this point?
So I'm in sophomore year, so I'm about
All right, 15, 16.
Yeah, 15, 16.
Yeah.
So you and your sister.
No, my sister stayed in Fort Myers with my grandparents, and I got moved up to live with my stepdad in
And where'd your mom?
Jupiter. She started traveling for work after she got out of rehab. She got like a really good job and everything.
Okay.
So she was never really home except for like the weekends.
Okay.
So she would stay in Fort Myers most of the time because the airport's right there. Just get up.
Okay. So, wow.
It's
So,
pretty wild because your stepdad had no parental rights to you,
Mm-mm.
right?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
No.
so did you feel abandoned a
Oh,
little bit?
100%. Oh, I rebelled even harder when I moved.
Yeah. Because did you feel abandoned by your mom?
I did. I was
Yeah.
like, you're throwing me out and making me live with somebody who I still hate.
Right, at
I
that
don't
time.
like him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And now I have to live by myself with him. I was
Right.
like, you're really just screwing me over. When in reality, it was probably for the best because I was going crazy.
He was
but-
sober, right?
He was, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was but that was always the issue with them. It was like, you have to stay sober because you're going to end up just like me. Growing
Yeah.
up, it was just like the same thing. And I'm like, I get it. Okay. It definitely runs in my family,
Right.
but it's like, I'm a kid. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, no.
Yeah.
And you have no, your ability to look ahead and see the big picture is not even developed at that point.
Exactly.
Every day is every day. There's
Exactly.
nothing beyond that day.
I'm not looking down the line and being like,
No.
I'm going to get married to this person and
No.
this and that.
No, not
in spite
unless
of
you're in
all
the
their
Mormon
efforts
Church.
to
Yeah.
get you there in the Mormon
Exactly.
Church, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
So how did Lee feel about that, bringing you in?
He set some very strict rules. It was like, I think it was 9 p.m. Your phone is in my hand. You're not allowed to have your phone at night because he knew I would sneak out. And it was, I wasn't allowed to drive my car unless he like knew where I was going.
Mhm.
He made me ride my bike to school, actually.
No
Yeah, I
way.
had to ride my bike.
Even
every
in
single
the
day.
really hot
Didn't
Florida
matter.
weather.
I rode my bike in the downpouring rain, and he was like, "I'm just, that's your responsibility
As
to
a
get you to
girl.
school."
Oh my
Mhm.
gosh.
It was terrible. I was so embarrassed.
To
That made
new-
me hate him even more though, because I was
Yeah,
like,
and you're like the new
"You
kid in
suck."
school.
I was gonna
right?
say you're at
Yeah.
a new school. What
Mhm.
did you start? Junior year at the school,
So this would be mid sophomore year.
and you had to start a new school.
Mhm.
So how was
Is that like
that
Jupiter
transition?
High School?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
How was that transition?
It was really hard, but the only thing that like worked was because I did go to like elementary, like late elementary school and early middle school in Jupiter.
True, you would live there.
So I knew a whole bunch of people. They just didn't remember me
right.
because I just left
Yeah,
randomly.
yeah.
right.
Because we had to pretty much pick up everything and leave
Right.
after Lee kicked us out. So when I came back, everybody was like, "Where did you go?" And I'm like, "Oh, I really wished you didn't remember me."
Did you rekindle friendships with those same kids?
A little bit. It was like certain people I started hanging out with, and then I realized real quick it was the wrong people because they were
Mhm.
all like super crazy, and it was weird. Once I moved to Jupiter, I was like, I need to dial back for a second. I don't want to, get kicked out of here because then where do I go? You know what I mean?
Right.
God forbid that happened.
So then did you kind of stop partying a bit, or
I did, and then I started hanging out with like my old friends that I would hang out with, and I never really drank though. I was just kind of like the person that would sit around watch everybody drink. So I'd be at a party, I would just kind of be like, I know better. I'm gonna get grounded.
right. So their tactic, as harsh as it was,
Mhm.
it did work.
It did work.
And so you weren't really drinking, but you were still socializing. And you and Lee, I assume, were kind of mending your relationship a little bit, or was it
like-
rough?
It was rough for the first couple months. I was over it because I was like, dude, you're treating me like a child. I'm like, I get it. I am a teenager, and
Right.
I did mess up a lot. You should take my phone at night, but I was like, 9 p.m. really?
Yeah, that's early. That is
Yeah.
early.
I know. I was like, damn.
So what about your biological father? Was he still popping in and out during these years?
Yeah, this was like right around the time when he heard that I moved, that I got shipped all the way back to Jupiter, that he was like heavy texting me, calling me all the time, late at night too, when he usually would be drunk and high. He would call me and just be like, "Oh, this is perfect. We can like get you to move in now because like he's not your biological father, so he has no parental rights," and like da 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 da, just feeding all this stuff into me. And I was like, you know what? You're right.
Okay.
For the longest time. And then one day it actually worked. This was the craziest thing I've ever done, and I regret it every day, but I literally tricked my mom into thinking I was coming down to visit her for the weekend in Fort Myers. I had all my stuff packed in a backpack, and I got to the Fort Myers house. Nobody was there. My friends were there, and they drove me all the way to my dad's house, and that was it. I snuckily moved in
So
with
this
him.
is still sophomore year.
Yeah, this was the end of sophomore year.
Oh, so a lot happened in
My sophomore
that
year.
second semester of sophomore year.
Yeah.
You squeezed a lot of life into that time.
I know. I
Yeah.
did.
Wow. So you really weren't with Lee that long,
No.
because that's really January to May.
Yeah.
So did you drive from Jupiter to Fort Myers?
Yeah, I drove my mom left her car in Jupiter. So then I was like, oh, perfect. I'll drive it and drop it off at her house in Fort Myers. And then my friends will be there to pick me up and take me over to Cape Coral to go live with my dad.
And your dad knew you were coming.
My dad 100% knew, and he was like, she can call the cops. I'm still your biological father.
Yeah.
So how was it when you got there? I mean,
Oh.
when was the last time you had seen him?
Oh my God, at that point, it was probably, I think I saw him on one of my trips to Fort Myers previously. So it was like probably like 6 months.
Oh, okay.
But it was just like we went to lunch really quick and caught up, and then I left. So
Okay.
that was the first time I saw him in a long time, was that lunch at Chili's. Was like, oh, I couldn't even tell you how many
I'm
years.
sure. I'm sure. Now, did he have a room for you and everything?
Yeah. Well, he made me sleep on the couch for the first couple nights because the room that was mine was like the storage room.
Okay.
So he moved all the stuff out, and then I finally had a room. But right off the get-go was a really rocky start. My mom was calling me, begging me to come back, and I was like, no, you shipped me away. I told you I didn't want to be shipped away. And she was like, it's for your own good. You're doing this so wrong, da 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 da. And I was like, no, you're wrong. I finally get what I wanted. I get to live with my dad.
Yeah.
Went south so quickly though.
What made it go south? Do you think?
My dad's drug and alcohol problem.
He wasn't sober, right?
No, he's never
Yeah.
been sober. Not a day in his life.
Still today.
Still to this day.
Yeah, okay.
Hardcore partier at
And
55 years old.
Drugs, not
Heavy.
just alcohol.
Yeah, it was like when I got over to his house, he would be like drinking out of a handle of Fireball at all times,
Oh
and
my
just
goodness.
doing so much cocaine, and him and his wife well, they're still married, but like him and his wife would do it all the time and just like not care what anybody thought about them. And I was just like, okay, you do your thing. And I always stayed away from like that whole thing. And then one night I invited my friend Sammy over to come sleep over at his house. I was like, this is cool. Look, I'm finally living at my dad's house, right?
Yeah.
And he let us drink, whatever. And we did. And then the next morning I woke up and I could tell something was off. And it was 6:30 in the morning and he's sitting there with a Bud Light in his hand, just still drinking. And I'm like, something's weird.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So shortly after that, Sammy came over again, like probably a week later. And that's when everything hit the fan, kind of. He was already drunk. It was 4 p.m. And me and Sammy walk in the door and he just like looks at my friend Sammy and says, there's something off about you. I feel like you're being two-faced right now. I feel like you're about to do something. And my friend's like, what? Like,
Yeah.
we're just here to hang
What a
out.
trip.
He's just tripping out.
Yeah.
And I'm like looking at him, I'm like, Dad, calm down. Everything's fine. He's like, no, her mom's a cop. I know what's going on here. And I
geez.
was like, what? He literally starts charging at her, gets
God.
her in a corner. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm screaming at him. And my friend Sammy's screaming and crying. And I'm like, oh my God,
Oh my
this cannot be
goodness.
happening. She luckily runs out the front door all the way across the street to a Lowe's, sits in the front parking lot. Now I'm in the corner. My
Right.
dad's got me in the corner. I'm like, what are you going to do? I literally looked at him. I said, fucking hit me. I dare you.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, I won't do that. I'm just going to sit here. And I was like, you're freaking me out. And I like snuck under his arm, ran to the bathroom, locked the door. He busts the door down and he gets in my face. He's like, you're just like your fucking mother. Like, you're a piece of shit. And I'm like, looking at him, I'm like, I didn't do anything. I came home from picking Sammy up and you're looking at me like I just committed like arson.
Right.
And so Sammy and I came up with this plan after like that all settled and I hid in my room for the rest of the night where she was going to send one of her friends to come like hang out with me for the day and we were going to get me out of my dad's house. And that's exactly how it happened the next day.
Oh my gosh.
Are you and Sammy still friends?
Mhm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
Oh, yeah.
was she a friend from Fort Myers?
Yeah, we've been friends for like 10 years now. We played softball together.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So I was going to say, when you went to Cape Coral, did you go to school there?
Mm-hmm. I went
Another
to
new school.
Yeah, I went to 5 different high schools.
Okay.
God.
Yeah, I was always the new kid. I was
Yeah.
used to it.
Oh man, that's rough.
Yeah.
So, but he didn't hit you or anything.
No, never ended up hitting me. Thank God.
So where did you go?
I went back to my grandparents' house, funny enough.
And did they know what? Did your mom know what
Mhm.
happened?
My mom and Sammy had planned this whole thing together, and Sammy just kind of was like telling me because my mom and I weren't really speaking at that time.
Yeah. So then, once you got home, did you ever see your dad again, or?
So the unfortunate part was I realized I left my school laptop at his
Oh, no.
house, and I was like, okay, we have to go back there, but this is gonna go really south, so we're gonna get some police involved, right?
Okay.
So the police, we all drive over there. The police escort me inside, and I get my laptop and I grab everything else that I forgot. And as I'm walking out, he looks at the cop. He goes, "Yeah, I just want to let you know if she ever steps foot on my property again, I'm gonna put a bullet in between her eyes." And the cops were like, "You know that's a threat, right? Like you're playing dumb right now." And then my dad's like, "I'm just saying, I'm just being honest." And the cop's like, "Do you have a gun?" He was like, "Not for you to see." I'm like, dude.
Oh my
Idiot.
goodness! Wow.
Mhm. That was the last time I've ever seen him.
Is that the last time you saw your dad?
Mhm.
Oh my goodness!
Mhm.
So, have you unpacked that?
Like,
Because the trauma of that, there's
pretty
level,
heavy.
there's
It is
levels.
heavy.
Yeah.
It is heavy.
It is. It took me a while to be like get over it. Like now
Yeah.
I'm totally fine.
You're okay.
yeah.
So you've unpacked it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've
You've
definitely
settled
let it
it,
go,
and because that is especially at that age, and what a blow to have spent most of your childhood just wanting to live with him because you thought that was the answer to fix
Mhm.
everything, that everything was wrong and he's the answer,
Mm-hmm.
and that he ends up being more horrible than everything else combined.
Exactly.
I mean, what a blow at that age.
I felt like the biggest asshole ever to my parents. I was like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have known that.
No,
No,
I had
you're-
to kind of find it out for myself.
Absolutely. You were the child.
Mm-hmm.
You were, and it's not like everything was wonderful, puppies and kittens at your mom's house either.
You get a pass as a kid.
Yeah.
You really
Yeah.
do.
That's something, if you have
the
children,
child.
that's something you'll learn is the adults are the ones that are supposed to be in
Mhm.
charge.
Yeah.
So it's because for you, it was two very unstable situations. And then your grandparents trying to bring stability in, but with the Mormon Church.
Exactly.
So, which is like hyper stability on steroids, you know, so it's almost like you didn't really have that. To me, it's, if tell me if I'm wrong, it's sounding like you didn't really have a solid foundation to stand on anywhere.
Nope.
So you were just kind of grinding and surviving.
Trying to figure out what is the right move, because I felt like every move I made was the wrong one.
Right.
So I was just kind of like, I finally like set in after all that happened with my dad, to where I was like, all right, I kind of have to sit back and let them take the reins, because they might not be wrong.
Okay.
You know?
So what age would you say that was then? Was that sophomore year? Are we still in sophomore year?
Yeah, we're at the end of sophomore year now.
What year was this?
It was.
Would you say?
We gotta go back. 2016, 2017.
2017.
Yeah, not long ago.
2017, 2018, probably. Yeah, we would be in 2018 now, because I started sophomore year 2017.
So 2018. So that year, you need to write that down on a piece of paper and burn it. That's the year to burn, honestly.
I have a question though. You're young. How did you get through that? So how are you so okay with it at such a young age? Like, I'm blown away. It's admirable. You know, it's awesome.
Absolutely.
You know, it's funny. Nate asked me the same thing. Because I don't know. I think it was because, you know, I've always kind of had to like grow up really quickly. Like when my parents went to rehab and it was just my grandparents, I always had to like make sure my sister was taken care of. She was up for school and all this other stuff. So I kind of like taught myself how to cope with things way easier than most people, because I tried therapy. I tried so many therapists. They always told me that my family was crazy, and I was like, thank you, I knew that, but I need like actual guidance. They were like, try grounding yourself. I'm like, okay, this isn't working.
Seriously?
Yeah. They put me on antidepressants. Oh my god, those things are terrible. It literally. So I used to have really bad panic attacks after that whole thing happened with my dad,
of course.
obviously. And so they put me on antidepressants. They're like, oh, this will help. And I was like, okay, cool. No, you could still feel yourself having a full-blown panic attack. You're just not expressing it. You're just sitting there like shaking, and you're like, oh my God. But like, you're like cool as a cucumber on the outside.
But on the inside, you're freaking out.
Exactly.
How long were you on antidepressants?
About 6 months. And then I was like, I can't do it anymore.
Okay. Was it hard to go off?
No.
So you didn't have any physiological
I think it's because I was so on and off with it in the first place. I would purposely forget to take it.
Yeah.
Just because I was like, I want to feel something here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you also, growing up then, played a parental role for your sister too. So you were, I mean, I'm sure you're coping. Did you have any other coping mechanisms besides when you drank alcohol and you went through periods smoking weed?
I don't think that was necessarily a coping mechanism, right? That was just a phase.
That was a phase like in freshman year, just to rebel against like the Mormon thing. And I stopped smoking weed after I left my dad's house, because I was like, I do not want to end up. I did not want to end up like him. I was like, no, hell no. I don't care if it's just weed. Like,
right.
First of all, this man, when I told him I smoked weed, started bawling his eyes out, crying on the floor. God. And he was like, you're going to hell. Like, you're a piece of shit. And I'm like, okay, Mr. Crackhead over here. Like,
talk about mixed messages. Did you have you must have had some coping mechanisms to get through all that.
I really don't, like, I don't remember how I like got through it as a kid. I think it was just I kind of always taught myself like push it down.
Okay.
Until it all comes up.
That's a coping mechanism.
Because trust me, I would throw my temper tantrums. Like, if I just kept pushing stuff down, next thing you know, I'm blowing up, just like crying and letting everybody have it. And they're like, whoa.
Yeah, it's the balloon. You're letting the air fill the balloon, and then it pops.
Exactly.
And then you start over again. It's a cycle. Exactly. So, and because even if we mentally don't resolve things, our body will. One way or another, something's going to happen. So whether it's we lose it or we talk about it, but something's going to happen. So that was, and you were probably in fight or flight most of your life.
Oh, yeah. Always.
Yeah.
It was like I always had anxiety. I was never safe.
Yes. Yeah. You never felt safe. So do you feel you have downshifted and you're not in fight or flight at this point in your 20s? Or are you still trying to shake some of it off?
I feel like at this point, I'm like pretty okay with everything. I can't even, like, I talk about it so much that I feel like that's another coping mechanism.
100%.
My friends think it's hilarious that I will be drunk at a bar and I'll be like, guys, let me tell you about this one time that happened when I was 5 years old. And they're like, you're just okay with that? They're looking at me like, Brooke, that's not okay. I'm like, it's funny, isn't it? And they're like, oh, I'm terrified of you.
Well, I'm sure part of your coping was disassociating.
Yeah, it was disassociating and laughing about it, thinking it's funny when it's really not.
Yeah, it's survival. It's survival. So you got through high school, graduated.
I graduated a year early because I went to so many high schools. I was like, I'll take my last year
You
the
were
same
done.
year as my junior year. So I graduated in 2019. So after that terrible sophomore year, I finally graduated the next year, and I was like, thank God.
Oh, that's great.
I know.
Though, because it's like another high school. You probably didn't feel completely connected to any high school where you're like, oh, I
No.
really want to go to the prom, or I want to attend the graduation.
No, I was so over
Because
it.
you had been bumping around so much.
So you must have gotten decent grades then, or tested out.
So no, my high school, I think my GPA before my junior year was like a 2.2. Like I failed out of so many classes because again, I was skipping so much when I was in
Yeah.
Fort Myers. I was like, I don't care what's happening. So what had happened is I would stay after school, and so school ended around like 2:40. I would stay until about 7 p.m. and just work on schoolwork every single day, and I would take all the classes that I failed, and I'd retake them, but they were all online. You could just cheat in
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah. No, that's true.
So
We'll mute that out.
yeah, I mean, don't let the public system know.
So you were determined just to be done.
I just wanted it over with.
And so what was your motivation to graduate so early? Did you have a next step or a plan, or your idea was just, I got to stop. I can't be doing this anymore.
I can't be in high school anymore. High
Yeah.
school was the worst years of my life. So I was just like, I want this done. I'd rather be sitting at home than
Yeah.
going to this school every day. But right when I graduated, my mom like shoved college down my throat. And I was like, put a pin in that.
Right.
I was like,
Right.
we're going to save that for a later date. But I tried to go and I failed out of my first semester of college. And my mom's like, what are you doing? And
Where did you go?
So I still go to Palm Beach State.
Okay.
But my first year, I went there and I took like the basic classes, purposely failed all of them because I was like, I don't want to go to school again.
Yeah.
I just got out of this. I don't want to do this again. My mom was pissed.
So over in Fort Myers?
No. In
Palm Beach State.
Palm Beach State.
So
Or the
I
FAU
didn't know
campus,
if they
right?
have different campuses. I didn't know if they had a campus over there. So, okay, so you graduated and moved here.
I was already here. I was at Jupiter High School when I.
Oh, so you were in Jupiter High School.
Yeah, there's a mix
Okay.
there because I went back to Fort Myers. My mom wouldn't let me stay there, so she shipped me back to Jupiter.
Okay,
Okay.
so after you left your dad's,
Yeah.
true, we missed this. We
Yeah.
missed
Yeah,
the
we missed
period
that
here.
little
So
period.
you left your dad's and you went back to Lee's in Jupiter. So you finished that. You did that whole graduating early at Jupiter High School.
Yeah.
And then your mom wanted you to go to college. So then, were you driving from Jupiter to here every day when you were doing Palm Beach State?
So I went to the Palm Beach Gardens campus.
Okay.
And so it wasn't that terrible of a drive, but yeah, I would go there, try my best, and when I kept seeing I was failing, I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna keep doing this. So then I
Yeah.
told my mom, like, I'm gonna take a gap. I was like, I need a break
Mm-hmm.
from everything. I just want to work and figure it all out. And she wasn't okay with it. And I think it was because it was also during COVID, so nobody was doing anything.
Yeah.
We were all just sitting around, and I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
I just want to sit around too.
Yeah.
That's what I-
It's
You
true.
deserve a break,
Yeah, exactly.
quite frankly. Yeah.
So did you work during COVID or?
I did. I worked at Ale House.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So in Florida opened up so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So really you were probably just not working for what, 2 months maybe?
Oh no, I still had to work. They made you do to-goes at Ale House, but you were
Yeah.
making such good
Oh,
money because people
right.
felt bad that you were working. So I
Which
was
ale
like,
house?
the Jupiter Ale House.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, I forgot that we would do takeout for
Yeah, I
everything.
remember that was the whole thing.
Yeah, it was to help keep restaurants in business
Yeah.
and stuff. Yeah, we participated in that. So you worked at Ale House.
Mhm.
Was that for like your gap year?
That was like so that was for about the entire gap year. And then I had a boyfriend at the time, and he was one of those people that was like, I'm not going to college. I don't care about school. I'm just going to work in the restaurant the rest of my life. So I think that was also the other thing that was making it so like I didn't want to do anything else, right?
Yeah.
So I was kind of feeding off of that for a while. And then one day I just woke up, like when I was still working at Ale House, I was like, yeah, I don't want to be in the restaurant for
Yeah.
the rest of my life. So then that's when I started going back to school, taking it a little seriously. I'd only take like 2 classes, not because I was like, if I take a full load, I know I'm just going to mess something up.
Yeah.
So then I just started taking like basic classes,
Mm-hmm.
passed them, felt great. And he would always be like the one that's like, you're what's wrong. Like you, men being men at that age, you know?
Yes.
Just being like, you are making it seem like I need to go to school now. I'm like, I don't care what you
It's
do.
his own issue.
Yeah, I
Yes.
was like, that's your problem. I don't care.
Well, he was threatened because you were starting to do something to better your life. So it
Mhm.
threatened him.
Exactly.
Because he knows either it's making him feel insecure about what he's not doing, and
Mhm.
also he's scared he's going to lose you.
Exactly.
So that's where that came
Oh
from.
my God. And then he always thought I was cheating on him.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, what? And he was like, you're cheating on me with someone at your restaurant job. I'm like, no.
Well, didn't he work? Oh, he didn't work there.
Mm-mm.
Okay,
Nope.
so 2 different restaurants.
Yeah, and it was him like showing up to Ale House, sitting in a booth, watching me work, and then like also driving by my house to make sure that my car was in the driveway, like crazy stuff like that.
No.
And I think that also was another thing that made my trust issues even worse with men. I was like, you're really giving me a number over here, okay?
Yeah.
This is a lot.
Because up until then, was he your first boyfriend?
Mm-mm. I had one when I was in Fort Myers, like my freshman year of high school, but it was like freshman year of high school.
It was like nothing. So he was your first real serious boyfriend.
Yeah, that was like the first one. Because my first boyfriend, we were dating for 6 months, and he moved all the way to Washington, and we tried to make it work. It was the funniest thing.
Yeah.
I still think it's hilarious.
Because you were what, like 14?
You can't really get much further away than, yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
It was just, I still make fun of myself. I was like, wow.
Yeah, but at 14,
I was like,
you're
he's
so
the
innocent.
one.
Yeah.
He was also Mormon, which was crazy.
Oh,
So
well.
I was making my parents proud.
Yeah. Did they know he was Mormon?
Oh,
Your
yeah.
mom know?
My mom hated him.
Oh.
She was like, he's a weed smoker. I'm like, yeah, a Mormon weed
But
smoker.
he's Mormon.
Yeah, I was like, Mom, but Mormon, okay.
But wait, during that time, your sister was still living in Fort Myers and going to school in Fort Myers?
Yeah, she didn't come to Jupiter until her, I want to say, senior year of high school.
So how was your relationship during those years?
Oh, rocky. Oh, my sister and I have always had a rocky relationship because we're half sisters, and she thinks that matters. I was like, dude, you've been in my life since you were born.
Yeah.
I was like, you're my sister. I don't care if you're half.
Where do you think that came from with her? Like, did somebody put that in her head, do you think, when she was young?
She's always just been the type of like person that's like, her opinion is what matters. Like, that is the right thing, right?
Okay.
Still to this day, she's just a stubborn girl.
Yeah.
So I think just whenever she found out that we weren't biological sisters,
But you are.
we are. But
Yeah.
like, but I mean,
You're
like,
half.
But
yeah,
full.
yeah, you know,
So
yeah,
you're
full.
biological,
Thank
but
you.
half.
I was like, how
Yeah.
do I say this?
Yeah.
She would just took that and ran with it. She was like, oh, I don't have a sister. That's my
Oh
half
my-
sister. And I was like,
Even though you had spent a good part of your life helping
Making sure
raise
that she was-
her,
yeah.
making sure. So
she always thinks that I was like, you know, the evil one. Like, I'm just as bad as the parents are. I'm like, oh, girl, listen.
So what age did that click for her where she made that decision that you're not her real sister? How old were you when that
Oh my
happened?
God, she had to be like 12. She was about to go into like her 8th grade year of middle school. So I was,
Sophomore.
yeah. It's
Yeah,
just
that
like,
sophomore year.
It's
it was
that
just like one
sophomore
of those
year.
things. It was terrible.
Oh my goodness. It's that sophomore year. You had so much happen to you that
Mhm.
year.
Don't even get me started. When I moved to my dad's house, she literally sent me this disgusting paragraph being like, you're a disgrace to the family. Mom doesn't love you anymore. Like, you just
goodness.
really threw away your entire family for someone that was never there for you. And I'm like sitting there like,
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Well,
So-
she also has her own issues, right?
Yeah.
She doesn't know who her dad is.
yeah.
Right?
My
So-
mom also told my sister for the longest time that Lee was her real dad. And when my grandparents unfortunately broke that news without my mom being there, my sister absolutely went apeshit.
Of course.
Oh my God,
So
I
how
was
old
like-
was she when that happened?
I want to say she was 11 or 12. Yeah.
So this all
This all was just, like-
exploded. Yeah.
right.
So your grandparents told her
Mm-hmm.
without your mom there or your mom's consent?
Was your mom
Okay.
in rehab during this time?
No. She
Just
was
out of
she was
town
out
at
of-
one of her
yeah.
jobs, and they
Mhm.
just decided. Do you know what their motivation
Now's
might
a
have
good
been?
time.
They hate Lee. They hated him for the longest
do
time.
they still hate him?
No. Now they love him. And
Yeah.
I'm like, those were just some rocky years for Lee. I don't know how he stayed.
Hell of a guy. I was thinking that. What a
Yeah.
hell of a guy.
Shout
man.
out to Lee.
I know,
Yeah.
literally
Shout out to Lee. No kidding.
He's
Jeez.
like the best stepdad now. I actually do like him.
Oh my goodness. So she was lashing out
Mm-hmm.
because her whole world collapsed.
Yeah. Everything kind of came at one time, and she was like, oh.
So both of you
Yeah.
were
Oh
having
my God, we were a
some
hell of a
major
trip.
stuff. Yeah. And then your mom's traveling,
Mhm.
right? She's doing what she needs to do to keep her life together. But she's
Exactly.
also not completely present with you guys.
Mhm.
And the people that are want you to be Mormon.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, shout out to Lee.
Yeah.
Because at least when you were with him, even if you didn't
was
like
stable.
those years, he was
It
stability.
was always stable. Yeah.
He was stable. So, okay. So she moves over. Why did she move over? Did they get back together?
My mom kind of said like, oh, to be honest, she kind of went through the same thing I went through. She was just kind of being a teenager, just
Yeah.
going out, sneaking out, doing all these crazy things. My mom's like, no, both of you girls are in one house, so we can supervise you. Where like Lee's always home.
Right.
You're not getting anything past that guy.
Right. And they're still on and off?
No, at this point they've been pretty steady. Like after that, like when she got out of rehab, that was the last time they were on and off for like about a year. And then they finally said, all right, we're back together.
Does your mom live in Jupiter then?
Mm-hmm. Now she lives in Jupiter.
So yeah, so your sister, she sent your sister to Lee for stability, and you were still living there then. So you guys were back in the same house for the first time in what, 5 years?
Yeah, 4 or 5 years, yeah.
And how did that go?
Oh my God, it was a shit show at first. I hated her, like being around all the time. I was like, she's also just so dramatic, and I was like so used to me just being like the only child over there. I was like, this is great. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
And then you come around, and now I have rules because you're around.
Right.
What?
And you were done with school by then, right? So you're working at Ale House or going to Palm Beach State. She's there. How long did it stay that way until your mom moved over, or what happened?
My mom was kind of like in between houses at that point, where she would be in Fort Myers like 1 week, and then she'll be in Jupiter the next week. So we got to see her a good amount of times. But this is like right around the time where her work load picked up, and she was traveling like a whole bunch. Like she'd be home like once a weekend, maybe.
Yeah.
And it took us a while to get used to that, but like now that it's all like the dust is settled and we're used to it, it's like nothing has ever been different.
Right. So she then is with you guys in Jupiter, and you guys are all together.
Yeah.
How did your grandparents handle that?
They didn't mind it. They missed the company, of course.
Yeah.
And so they would always call us and be like, when are you going to come and see us again? And it's like, yeah, soon.
Yeah.
But like once I moved away from Fort Myers, I had no interest to go back to Fort Myers except for Sammy, because she lives over there still.
Yeah.
So once we moved, though, I was like, nah, kind of over it.
Yeah.
Don't really love it
When's
over
the
there.
last time you've been back over there?
I was there last weekend.
Was it kind of a surreal thing rolling into town and being like just awkward?
It kind of is sometimes, because it's like I have so much, like I just remember all the crazy things that I did as a teenager. I'm like, yikes.
Yeah, I can imagine. So then how long were the four of you in the same home, would you say?
So it was probably 20, so like COVID pretty much. Like once COVID hit, all of us were in the same house. It was also the time my parents were getting like their bathrooms and kitchen redone, and it was just madness.
Yeah.
My sister's like over there just complaining that she's stuck inside. I'm playing video games all the time. I'm getting my Wi-Fi shut off, and I'm screaming at Lee again. It's one big happy family at the time.
I mean, I can't imagine that you guys have had all this stuff go on, and then now it's all come back full circle. You're living together again for the first time, all four of you, and it's COVID.
Yeah.
You're stuck. And then you're saying they're doing house renovations.
It was like madness.
Yeah.
Did after that, did your mom try to reparent in a sense? That had to have happened, right? Where she tried to be mom again, and you had kind of moved past that in some ways, right? You had moved on.
It was kind of like that. I should say, like, the one thing that I will say still to this day, my parents will apologize time and time again for my childhood and everything that I went through. And they always say, like, if I could take it back, if I could do this different, like, I would.
Yeah.
And so my mom, I want to say in the last, like, 5-6 years now, she's, like, tried to step up and be, like, the best parent. And she has. I'm not going to lie. She's definitely made, like, a complete 180 with that one. So I'm very happy that.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's
That's wonderful, because for a lot of people that go through hard times in their childhood, they never get that apology.
Never.
I mean, you'll never get it from your dad, probably.
Oh, no, never.
I mean, you might. You're young.
Maybe.
You might. But, it may not come.
I wouldn't hold out hope, but.
No, I'm not betting on it.
Yeah.
No, but that's wonderful that happened for you. And also, I mean, and for her, speaking as a parent, I'm sure she's very grateful that you guys are still in her life and talk to her and want to have a relationship with her, because when you look as a parent, when you make mistakes, it's terrifying if you think it could cause your children to want to be estranged from you.
Exactly.
So
and
the
it
fact,
did for a while.
Yeah, of course. Of course. So has she been sober since rehab?
Oh yeah. Both my stepdad and my mom. My stepdad's, I think he's going on 15 years. My mom's going on 10 this year.
That's
wow.
awesome.
I want to say, so that's crazy.
Amazing.
I know.
That's amazing.
So nothing, no weed, no drinking, nothing.
Their guilty pleasures, Monster Energy drinks, and I think it's the cutest thing. Monster
funny.
Energy drinks and like San Pellegrino.
Do they do anything that help keeps them sober? Like I don't know, not AA, but like people will do things as a diversion that's almost as addictive. Are they just kind of, is it normal type of thing?
I think for my mom, and I'm just gonna say this as my opinion here, she works so much that's like her bread and butter.
Yeah.
She loves the tea at work.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, she goes crazy for it. She's also now, over the last couple of years, just like, because she's a boss now. She just got a promotion recently. Well, she switched companies, but she just like loves running her like little area of expertise. She's like, I'm the boss now. This is
That's
cool.
awesome.
I've worked my way from
That's awesome.
washing hair to like being in the cabinet industry and like making these cabinets, which is cool.
That's amazing.
I know.
Yeah, because a lot of times, and speaking is because we're not 100% sober, but we made a huge shift a couple of years ago, and a lot of times when you like to enjoy something or have an addictive personality, what you change to also you become addicted to.
Literally.
You know, like Brian loves
Exercise.
cold plunging or exercise. We love exercise, but then we're like, we have to do it. It's like, so I think once you have that addictive personality, that's why it's important to try to find healthy things. You're going to be into it just as much. So if you can find that outlet that's not, destructive.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm sure for your mom, it's working,
Yeah.
which she's been very good at and successful and
Crazy,
been
yeah.
very fulfilling for her. So that's awesome.
It's so crazy to watch that though. Like, see my mom literally go from nothing to like this huge boss all of a sudden. I'm like, what?
It's
in the
amazing.
world? Yeah.
That is amazing. It's very, very cool.
It is really cool.
Yeah.
To watch.
No, and you and your sister, are you guys still butt heads a little bit? Or
I just think that at this point, it's just sisters being sisters. It's not as bad. Like, she calls me sissy now. Like, she actually does know that I'm her sister and she's not as much of an asshole.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Well, how old would she be right now?
She's 21 now.
Okay. Yeah. So she's still young.
Yeah.
So after COVID, did you stay there or did you move somewhere else?
I'm trying to think. So that's 2020, 2021-ish. So I ended up quitting Ale House because my ex-boyfriend's sister started working at Ale House.
Oh, wait, did you break up with the boy, the crazy boy?
No, I was still with him at this point in COVID.
Okay.
Yeah, we were going on like 2 years crazy. I know. I regret that one too. But
we all have those.
I know. And so I quit Ale House because his sister started working there and I just couldn't take it anymore. She was like one of those very toxic people. Like, it's my show. Like, you're just like a extra in it, right?
But is this is this the guy that was driving by your house? It's his sister.
It's his sister.
So you guys did break up.
No, they're still together.
Okay, yeah.
The sister's working at the restaurant.
But it's her, so it's your boyfriend's sister.
Yeah.
So she's there and she's
making my life hell.
Okay.
So
Sorry.
I finally was like, I'm gonna get a new job. And so one of my friends that I knew was like, hey, my brother works at this place called Jetties. You should go apply there. I was like, okay, word. Like, I'll go and give it a shot.
Yeah.
And I got hired on the spot and I was like, oh, cool. This is like my breakaway from Ale House. And
is it a restaurant?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
It's really nice over there. I like it. It's in Jupiter though. I still make that hike. It's crazy. But
wow.
And so I start working there and like everything's fine. We're still dating. And then it was like, I think my 20th birthday, we all went to, like, me and a whole bunch of my friends and him went down to Universal for the weekend. And we're obviously drinking and we're having fun. He was like the sober Sally though. He was like, oh, my mom's an alcoholic and like, you're not allowed to drink because my mom's an alcoholic. I was like, listen, my mom is an ex-alcoholic, okay?
Yeah.
Like,
well, and you've been together so long now.
I know. I was like,
is this a new thing he decided to bring into your relationship?
No, this was like ongoing for years at this point. I never really drank though until I turned 20.
Okay.
Because I was just like, oh, I'm almost 21. Why not? And so we were drinking and he was screaming at me in front of everybody. And I will never forget this. One day we were all waking up nice and early to go to Universal. He's downstairs screaming at me at 8 a.m. being like, you're hungover, you're a drunk, you're a piece of shit, da 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 da. And I was just sitting there like, okay, buddy, you want to play? And so then I started barking back at all my friends like, Brooke, stop. Like, get it together.
Yeah.
And after that, it was just kind of like, I knew it was over. Like, I was like, I'm over it. I don't want to be with somebody that's
Did you end it right then?
No. I think it lasted like another like 6 months. And I finally just was like, dude, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
It just kept getting progressively worse.
Yeah.
And
he sounds like he was very controlling.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like none other. Like he would text my mom and be like, hey, can I come sleep over? Because my mom kicked me out. That didn't happen.
Right.
Like he would just always need to be. the amount of times I would get off of work and he'd be in my bed without me knowing and just be like, I wanted to surprise you. And I was like, get out.
At your house where your parents are?
Yeah. I was like, get out.
How did they feel about him?
My mom always had like a rocky feeling about him. She was like, sometimes he's so nice, but then he's like so hot and cold. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
She was always just kind of like, I'm not comfortable with him always being here. And I'm like, that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Very toxic.
Very, very toxic.
Yeah.
How did he handle you ending things?
Oh my God. It was like the end of the world. He just looked at me and he was like, oh, you'll be back. I was like, for sure. Sure.
And then did he keep coming around and
texting me, like asking my friends about me, asking my parents about me, which is crazy. I was like,
yeah.
And then I remember I tried to rekindle things with him again. I was like, all right, we'll give it another shot, maybe a month after we broke up, right?
Yeah.
And he went through my Apple Watch and showed my mom all the text messages that I sent to boys over the last month and said, your daughter's a whore, and just dropped my Apple Watch. And my friend texted me and said, did you cheat on him? And I was like, never. I was like, I've never cheated on him. And he was like, then what's this? And he sent him screenshots of like the text messages.
What?
Yeah. And I texted him, I go, if I ever see your face again, I'm gonna freak out. Like, we're so done. And that was the last time I ever spoke to him.
That's crazy that he had the balls to show your mom that.
I know. Oh my God. That was so awkward. I get home and my mom's like, we need to have a talk. I'm like, oh God.
Yeah,
Stop.
but if you
Hopefully she said, our talk is going to be, you never go near this kid again.
Was.
Okay,
It was.
good,
Yeah.
good.
It was half,
Yeah.
I'm really sorry that we have to talk about this. And other half was, don't go near him. Like,
Right.
he's bad news.
Right. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. So he was done.
Yeah.
You're working at Jetties.
Mm-hmm.
And what was your next move after that? Like, you're still living at home.
Mm-hmm. I'm living at home and I'm just trying to like figure out what I want to kind of do with my life at that point. I was like, I could go the business route. I could go to this nursing thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of taking classes. And then that's when I met Alex. And
How did you guys meet?
from Jetties, he worked there with me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so for the first year, it was funny when I first started working there, my managers made an announcement that I wasn't allowed to be hit on by any of the men that were working there. And I thought that was hilarious because I was I think I was just 19 at the time.
Oh my goodness.
And then everybody was like, oh, well, why not? And they were like, she has a serious boyfriend, okay? Do not ruin that. And I was like, please just like, don't stop. Like, he's not great. Okay?
Right.
And then I don't even really, the Christmas party happened at Jetties, which got a little crazy. Everybody just got really drunk.
Yeah, as happens at work parties.
Yeah.
Well, it's a bar too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We were at a bar and it
Yeah.
was just like, and then one thing led to another and we started dating. It was kind of crazy.
That's cool. So
Yeah.
that was how many years ago? Would
3
you say?
years now.
Wow.
Mhm.
You guys have been together a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So he lived in Jupiter
No, he lived in Boynton the whole time.
and he was driving up to Jupiter.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, for work.
So
Where do you live now?
I live in now we live in Delray.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're close.
Yeah.
So you're living at home in Jupiter, and was he living in his own place in
Mhm.
Boynton?
Mhm.
And you guys are both working at Jetties.
Mm-hmm.
And did you go back to school or?
Yeah, I was kind of like doing the thing that I always was doing, was taking 2 classes, trying it out, seeing what's happening,
Yeah.
and then just going from there. And then around, I want to say it was like April of the, like, so now we're in, I don't know what that is, 2022.
Mhm.
Yeah. My stepdad, like, so I got home from Alex's house for the weekend. Like, I went back home and my stepdad just was like in a little mood, you could tell. And he was like, you didn't clean your litter box, like your cat's litter box. I was like, okay, like, I'll get it done. He was like, I don't like your attitude. What did I say? You didn't clean your cat's litter box all weekend. That's not my responsibility. And I was like, okay. Ends up turning into this huge fight and he kicks me out. And he goes, you're gonna have to figure it out. Like, get out of my house. So I literally,
What?
within the next hour, pack up all of my stuff into my car and I just drive and I call my friend. I'm like, hey, just got kicked out. She's like, go to my house. You can live with me.
So what led
Crazy.
to, did something lead to that?
No, the litter box.
Had you been spending more and more time at Alex's?
Yeah, but Lee's biggest thing was, let me know where you are and when you're going to be home, and I don't care. And I told him every single day, I was like, hey, I'm staying the night. Hey, I'm staying the night. And he was like, okay, no problem. I think he just had like a bad day at work or something. And then the litter box was like the last straw.
It was like the last straw.
Yeah.
And you're like, fine, I've been through this before.
I was like,
Yeah.
All right, we're going to retract the shout out to Leon.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll recover as we go.
He might recover.
Okay.
Okay, so you went to your friend's house.
Mhm. And it was It was like a very like I knew I was gonna move out soon. Like I just had like an inkling that like this was gonna happen, or I was gonna take the reins and just leave. And so when I moved out for the first time, I finally felt like everything in my life was going okay. I didn't talk to Lee for a while. I'm not gonna lie, like probably a month. I was just like, I'm over you. My mom, she didn't know about this either. My mom was out of town. She calls me freaking out. What do you mean you left? Like all your stuff's just out of the house. And I'm like, hey, you tell me to go. I'm not scared to go anymore. Okay, I'm an adult. Like, I can do this. And she was like, well, you're going to come home and we're going to have a chat. I'm like, we can have a chat. I'm out. Like, I'm not coming back.
No. Because also I'm sure in some ways, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, it triggered old wounds.
It did.
Had to have.
It had to have, because
I was like, this isn't the first time I've been kicked out. Okay?
Right. And so it's like, look, I trusted you guys. And you've broken my trust.
Exactly.
And it's not a safe space right now for me.
No.
Because I'm not going to go back when now I can't trust that you're not going to do this again.
Exactly.
And how many times can someone be put through something like that by a parental figure?
I've kind of like I was at that point, I should say, where I was like, you guys keep kicking me out. What's the end goal going to be? I'm going to end up like having to be fully out anyway. So why not just stay out?
Yeah.
Because they were begging me to come back home. They were like, no, I didn't mean it. Like I was just having a bad day. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Especially considering the history. There's certain things, especially if you know the history, you just don't go there.
Exactly.
Because if you do, there's going to be consequences.
Exactly. And that was my whole like view on it. And so, but like,
where did you live then?
West Palm Beach. I lived
by yourself?
With my friend. No,
okay.
I moved into her apartment with her boyfriend, and her dad was living there, and it was decent for a while, and then,
so her dad and you and her lived together,
and her boyfriend, he was there too.
Okay,
and it was a great time. I was never really there though because I was always at Alex's house at that point. I'm like, nobody can tell me when to come home.
That's right. You didn't have to tell anybody where you're going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she liked it. She says it still to this day. She's like, you were the best roommate ever. Never there.
Yeah.
Everything was always clean. You paid me rent way before time.
Right. Did your cat go with you?
No, he had to stay there because she has a pit bull. And that wouldn't have been good. No.
Is your cat still alive?
Yeah, he's still at my mom's house.
He still lives there, so you get to see him when you go home.
Yeah, my mom like won't let me take him. I've asked, and she's like, that's my cat now.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you're living with your friend, but mainly at Alex's.
Yeah.
Still working at Jetty's and going to school.
Yeah.
Now, at that point, did you know what you were going to school for? Or you just doing prerequisites?
I knew nursing was like my end goal at this point. I was taking I was starting to take the prereqs for it. And Alex being in college also and seeing how hard he was working really pushed me to like the next level. And I was like, all right, I can do this. And then I started taking more classes. Then I was taking 4 classes. I was like, whoa, who's this person?
Yeah, right. Were you going to school or was it online?
I did half online, half in person.
Okay. Yeah. And where was he going to school?
UCF.
So did online or did he go up to Orlando?
He did online and he had to go to Orlando like once a week to go to one class or something.
Okay.
Like that crazy. Okay. I know he hated
with
it.
With like an attendance
literally.
Mandate.
Yeah. At least it's only 2.5 hours.
Exactly.
It's not Tallahassee.
I guess it could be worse.
It could be worse.
that ride though is.
Yeah,
Orlando ride sucks.
It does. It does. We've done it so many times. Okay, so you're now nursing. Did you know what kind of nurse you wanted to be, or?
I wanted to be a labor and delivery nurse for the longest time. I was like, that sounds cool. Babies. I don't have to see any of like the really gross stuff. I just have to, watch, I guess, birth.
It can be gross.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Trust me, I changed my mind real quick when I saw it for the first time.
And it can be sad too.
It's beautiful and it's also very sad sometimes. Yeah. It's like I just couldn't take it, so I was like, you know what, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. So, do you know what you're doing right now with nursing? Are you still in school right now for nursing? So how much longer do you have?
So I have a year. I start like official nursing school in hopefully June if I get in.
This June?
Yeah.
That's exciting.
I know. I worked my butt off and finally, hopefully it's paying off. I just got to take those tests.
Wow, that is so cool. And do you know now what kind of nurse you want to be or where you want to be working?
I kind of had the idea because I work at Wellington right now in the ICU. So I see worse than labor and delivery, right?
Yeah.
And I love it. I eat it up every day. Like I think it's like you just learn so much on that floor. There's nothing you really can't learn.
Wow. Every day is different.
Every day is different. Some days are terrible where you're just like, you don't sit for 12 hours. And the other days I'm sitting and I'm just waiting for something to happen, which sounds bad, but like,
yeah,
you're always on edge though in the ICU. Like you're just like waiting for something to go wrong. And that sounds bad, but it's like, you're in such critical condition up there. Like
yeah,
you deal with like the worst of the worst.
Are they like a level 1 or I don't know the designation?
They're not a trauma hospital, no.
Okay.
But sometimes they like take trauma, like if it's like the worst case scenario and no other hospital can take them, they'll take them, but they ship them immediately to JFK. They're like, all right, we'll like get you stabilized and then we'll ship
It's
you.
like our local hospital here.
Yeah.
If you like ICU like that, have you thought about being a trauma nurse?
I thought about it. I would have to start working at Delray, which I've heard is like a decent hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been debating on moving it over because now that we moved to Delray, it's right around the corner from my house instead of now Wellington being 35 minutes away.
Yeah.
And waking up at like 5 a.m. to have to go to work is like terrible.
It's like Mormon school.
It is. It's like my nightmares.
It takes a very special person to be a trauma nurse.
Yeah.
And just from what I'm hearing you say, I feel like you have some of that in you. So it's definitely something. My dad was a trauma doctor. It's definitely
really?
something to consider because talk about exciting.
I know.
Would you ever consider becoming a doctor? Is that an interest?
If anything, a nurse practitioner.
Okay.
Or like a PA or something like that. I don't think I could be a doctor. Not because I don't think I'm smart enough. I think it's because, I don't want to be like $500,000 in debt with school. My aunt, she was an ER doctor, and she told me she's like $350,000 in debt.
Yeah.
And she was like, it'll take forever to pay this off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, nowadays, I think nurse practitioners get more action even, like they're busy.
Yeah.
And it's almost as much school, I think, or it's a lot of
6
school.
years, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we'll let her get in as a nurse first to decide if she wants
We'll rock
to.
and roll with this for a little while.
Yeah. So then nursing school, that would be in June. And then how long do you attend nursing school?
So it would be a full year. So it'd be just a full year of school, which is going to suck, but gotta grind through it. It's 40 hours a week, which is also crazy.
Wow.
Plus, aren't you working a job or two still?
Well, I'm working 2 jobs right now too. So
what are you doing?
I work at the ICU in the hospital, and then I work at Jetty's still as a bartender and server. So
what's so interesting about that is both of those jobs are giving of yourself to people, but in 2 completely different ways.
It's exhausting.
You have got to be exhausted.
Always.
Because you're always taking care of someone, whether it's behind the bar or as a server or in an ICU. I mean, do you take time for yourself and prioritize any self-care?
Yes and no. Alex just said this yesterday. I was like, I'm going to go get my nails done. And then he was like, okay, go have fun. And then I was like, no, I'm not doing it. And he sent me money. He's like, please go.
Yeah.
Like, go take care of yourself for once. And so then I went. I was like, wow, that's really nice. So I need to start doing it.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
And at this age, if you can start making that a priority, because if you end up having a family and all that, it's the one thing as women we put on the back burner. If you can incorporate that now with how crazy your life is now, then you'll be able to hold on to it, even if it's once a month.
Exactly.
Go get a massage or go have coffee alone where there's no noise, just something. It's important to keep that balance, and especially right now. Now, it sounds like Alex is very supportive.
Very.
And he knows all about your history.
Oh, yeah. We bonded over that because, he's been through the ringer himself.
Okay.
Yeah. So
he understands.
we kind of trauma bonded.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
that's wild.
And what's interesting, because I also have not similar, but a traumatic childhood. But what's funny about Brian is he didn't.
Yeah.
And so you would never think that would work, because I always thought I would end up with someone who had a similar, I would trauma bond with someone.
Yeah.
So it's that makes more sense to me than what's in this. But because they get it. You don't even have to
It's amazing
explain.
because your trauma, and I'm not diminishing it, so don't give me shit later.
Don't come at me.
You've got a story.
Oh, for
my
sure.
gosh.
For sure.
I'm really proud of you, to be honest
Thank
with you.
you so much.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Because now you're so wait, what's the step from you were living with your friend but now you're living with us. So what happened there?
So I was always just at Alex's house, and then one day he was just like, you want to move in together? I mean, you're always here. There's no point in like paying 2 separate rents. And it kind of all worked out because then he got like a really good, like, his sister needed a place to like move into. So her stepdad like was like, here, you can stay in this house and we'll charge you like $650 a month for rent.
Wow.
And we were like,
Jeez.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So he was like, you can move in here and just pay $650, call it a day. So that's exactly what we did. And then she was like sad to see me go. My friend, she was like, we were never really roommates.
Yeah.
Your stuff was here, but
Yeah.
you weren't.
Yeah. And then now you guys have your own place in Delray.
Mm-hmm.
So, and how long have you been there?
We just moved there in October.
And is that your first time where it's a place you two picked out together?
It's just us two, yeah.
And how's that going?
It's going really well, actually. I
Yeah.
thought at first it was going to be a shit show because it's a 780 square foot apartment.
Right.
It's pretty small. And I was like, that's a lot of,
Yeah.
that's close at all times. And I'm like the type of person, I need my space. He's the same way. And so I thought we were going to just butt heads all the time. But no, he shuts the door when he plays video games and I can sit on the couch in peace.
That's perfect.
That's
great.
awesome.
That's perfect. And it sounds like you guys really understand what each of you needs because you both kind of need the same thing.
Yeah.
So you don't have to explain it to him and he doesn't have to explain it to you. That's
No,
huge.
At first, when I was younger, because when we started dating, I was 20. So he was like, he had explained it to me. He's like, okay, listen, if we're going to make this work, like, I need my Sundays. Like, Sundays are for football and the boys. That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's fine. I get it.
Yeah.
What's your age difference?
It's 4 years. So he's 28 and I'm 23, about to turn 24.
Okay.
So yeah.
I mean, just being able to have that communication so early is so vital.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be because you both have already been through so much. You're like, I'm not afraid to speak up. I'm going to state what I need because I don't have time to kind of like put up with stuff. I've already put up with enough.
Exactly.
You know,
It took me, it's still like, to this day, I'm like the worst person to be like if I have a problem, I'll still push it down. And Alex will be like, tell me, please, for the love of God, just tell me what's wrong. And I'm like, no, it's fine. Everything's fine.
Do you have tells where he knows like certain things where he's like, okay, something's going on.
If I'm super quiet, he's like, oh no, because I talk a lot.
Right. So that's something you still haven't unpacked. So, and that can, I can tell you for myself, really, I spent a good part of my 30s and 40s trying to unpack some stuff and really just settled it like maybe 5 years ago. You won't take that long, but once you unpack it, you realize, wow, I was holding on to a lot. You don't know you are.
Yeah.
Until all of a sudden you're not carrying it anymore and you're like, oh,
damn. I know.
You know, and it'll just happen one day. You'll just decide to, you know, and you're probably doing it piece by piece.
Yeah.
Every year.
I've been realizing that I've been getting better with just like talking what's on my mind. And he's like so funny. He's like, there's nothing you can be embarrassed about in this relationship. We've told each other like our horror stories.
Right.
And he was like, I'm here for you. You're here for me. And like, that's it. I used to get so embarrassed if I said something out of place. He was like, why are you embarrassed? Like, you're fine. And I'm like, oh no, well, I had that toxic relationship and I was like, if I spoke out of place, oh God.
Right. Well, and for your childhood, there was just so much upheaval and at times rejection when you're kicked out, and then your dad was such a disappointment. So it sounds like Alex is really the first male in your life that you've ever been able to 100% trust with your heart.
Yeah.
And he's a safe place.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, even though Lee's great.
Yeah, Lee's great. He's
but
back.
then he even had his moments.
Yeah.
And not that Alex isn't going to, but it sounds like he's given you that place.
Exactly.
And then, but when you've gone through a lot growing up, it takes a long time to trust that and to really hand over your stuff.
It took me a long time to trust Alex because I heard frat boy and I was like, oh God.
Right. Oh yeah. No. And you just, it takes so long to, you also trust they're not going to leave.
Exactly. That was the biggest thing.
Abandonment.
I was like, I'm 20, you're 25, 24, 25 at the time. I was like, you could find anybody. Okay.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And then having some abandonment probably issues too. No. And I don't know if you did this, but I know with Brian, like I would test him, you know, or I would almost like start to sabotage things because I'm like, well, you're going to leave anyways. And it takes a while to realize, no, you're not. You're actually going to stay, and trust in that.
I feel like there's a couple times where I would just like really test the waters and see like how much he actually like wanted to be with me.
Yeah.
And then we'd always get into a fight and I'd be like, oh, why did I do that?
Yeah. No, but it's like learning and all that.
Yeah.
Now I feel like I remember, I don't know if Nathan told me, but were you diagnosed with diabetes? So was that sophomore year?
I know. I was thinking the same thing.
No. It was, thankfully,
Oh
it
my
was
gosh.
actually crazy thing was right when my mom got out of rehab, probably like 2 months later, I got diagnosed with diabetes. And my mom was like, oh.
So were you having symptoms?
So they thought I had mono. They swore left and right that I had mono. They're like, oh, it's normal in kids, whatever. Like, no big deal. So they ran a whole bunch of blood work, and my blood sugar was like crazy. It was like 400 or something like that. And
Oh
they
my
were
goodness.
like, okay, we're going to bring it back in. We're going to rerun it, see if it was just a malfunction or something. It was even higher then. And then they pretty much looked at me and they're like, okay, so this could be an overactive thyroid or you're a diabetic. And I was like, oh, cool. So then I got shipped to the hospital where they put me on an insulin drip, and they just like pretty much were like, we're gonna just run some tests, really make sure like we know what we're seeing here is true, and then we'll get back to you.
And they kept you at the hospital though.
For a week. And then like I think it was day 2 or day 3 of me being in the hospital. The doctor comes in with like the nurse practitioner, and they're like looking at me. They're like, so it's not the thyroid disease, it's diabetes. And I just remember my mom looking at me being like, it's okay. And I looked at the doctor. I'm like, okay, I'm going to kill myself then. And then the doctor was like, okay, no, you can't say that in the hospital.
Yeah, we can't let you leave now.
I know. She's like, well,
Get
you're
the
stuck.
straight jacket.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
stuck
yeah.
here now. And so that I was like screaming and crying, and they were like, you got to calm down. And then the doctor's like, put her in a wheelchair, take her outside, let her get some fresh air.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I came back in, and I was like, well, this is my life, I guess.
So were you just exhausted? Was that the
Mhm.
main thing? Is you
I couldn't get out of bed. I was peeing like crazy. My body was actually like aching at all times. I'm like, I feel so old. I'm 14.
and had that happened before that?
Mm-mm.
So it was an onset at that time.
Mhm.
Is it considered type 1 or type 2 then?
Type 1.
Okay.
Because with type 1, sometimes it just takes a long time for your pancreas to actually finally
Okay.
fully shut off. And then with type 2, it just like, it still gives you insulin, just not enough for the upkeep.
Okay. So is that
Mhm.
genetic? Does anyone else in your family?
My dad's side of the family has type 1 diabetes.
Did you know that?
No, at the time I didn't.
Okay.
And the best part is my mom called my dad and was like, hey, so I just want to let you know, like, Brooke has diabetes. And he goes, okay. And I was like, well, can you come see me? He was like, yeah, if I have time. And I was like, okay. So I'd call him every day, and I'd be like, come see me, not once. And then he just called me when I got out, and he was like, sorry, kid, just got so busy. I'm like, I bet.
This was before you lived with him,
Yeah,
right?
this was
So
before
this,
the
Yeah.
horror.
this is how old? 14,
Yeah, I was
right?
14, yeah.
So then you needed to start giving yourself shots and
Mhm.
learn and doing all that.
You pretty much have to relearn the way to live again. And it was kind of crazy because the doctor, she was like, before you leave, you're going to have to give yourself an insulin shot. I'm like, ew, no,
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. She was like, well, then you're going to be here for another week. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
So then I gave myself an insulin shot, and she literally discharged me within the hour. I was like, cool.
So for people listening that are curious how diabetes changes your life, and how, you said you had to relearn how to live.
hmm
Can you explain a little more on that?
Yeah, so pretty much every food label you look at is like your kind of like guideline of like the type of like the amount of insulin you need to take. So if I like look at, for an example, a gallon of milk, it's going to be like 12 carbs per like 8 fluid ounces or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have to take whatever your insulin regimen is for that 12 carbs.
Okay.
And then you also have to take into account fiber. Fiber is another one that you would subtract a point for how much fiber is like in that product.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just all this math at all times. But I've had it this is my 10th year having it. And it's like the back of my head now. Like I just look at a label. I'm like, yeah, I got this.
So what about when you go out to eat?
So now I have like a insulin pump, and I have a continuous glucose monitor. So I
Okay.
just type everything into my little,
Oh,
I
wow.
call it
That's cool.
my diabetes phone. I just type it in there, and it gives me insulin. Don't even have to poke myself anymore. Or
And so
anything.
do you have to watch what you eat at all, or can you just do whatever you want?
You get to live.
You
That's
live,
crazy. Yeah.
can drink alcohol
Mm-hmm.
and do it. So it just takes care of it.
Yeah, it kind of, well, when you drink alcohol, you just got to make sure that your blood sugar doesn't crash, because that happens.
Right.
Because, alcohol is always going to lower your blood sugar, and then you're going to get shaky. And that's not what you want.
Well,
Right.
initially you'll spike it, right?
Yeah, it
And
goes
then
up, and then it
crashes
just
hard.
crashes hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that happens even when you're not diabetic,
Mhm.
right? That's just something that happens. Because I know
Well, we
we've
can-
woken up shaky
Oh.
before with my
Yeah.
blood sugar down.
It's partly why, as you get older, it's harder the hangovers hit you worse. Because
Yeah.
just that's what happens. You crash harder.
Yeah, exactly.
So was it hard when you got diagnosed? And was this when you were in Fort Myers?
Of course.
Yeah. Going to school, was it hard socially at all? Did it spill into your social life, or
At first, I took it really hard, and I was just like, everybody's gonna make fun of me, and they did. High school was fun. Like my freshman year was just like everybody called me Captain Diabeto.
Seriously?
Yeah, it was kind of funny. Now it's hilarious, but back then I was like, you guys suck.
So how did they know? Because you'd have to go to the office?
Because I'd have to go to the nurse's office and give myself an insulin shot, and they would always just like see me walking there. They're like, "Yeah, go take your insulin, fatso," and I'm like, "I'm like 100 pounds, thank you."
Yeah.
What? Yeah, I wonder now if that would happen. I feel like in today's
like not.
society, I don't think so.
I really don't.
Because I think maybe there was one positive of cancel culture. I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah.
But I think you can't. I think kids just won't do that now.
No, I don't see it as much.
No, I don't think that whole bully. I think there's other bullying.
Oh yeah.
But I don't think about something like that.
Mm-mm.
So for high school, it was like that.
It was hard
you.
for the first like 2 years, and then I kind of like grew like this like thick skin, and I was like, oh yeah, I am Captain Diabeto. Then they stopped. Oh my god, the bullies. Every time that you stop them in your tracks and you agree with them, they're like, what?
You took the power away.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So and then you said you just recently got on an insulin drip. Is that what they call it?
Insulin pump.
Insulin pump.
Mm-hmm.
And how long have you been on that?
So I've actually had that for like 6 years now, but I got the continuous glucose monitor like 2-3 years ago, and it's life changing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, was that
I don't
life
have to prick
changing?
my finger anymore. It's great.
That's amazing. And
Yeah.
how accessible is that to people with diabetes?
Oof, with insurance companies nowadays, I mean, you can go pick up the continuous glucose monitor at like Walgreens.
You can get them at Amazon.
Yeah, but
Okay.
like the pumps, it just depends on your insurance company. They have like the one with the tube, which I absolutely was like not happening.
Yeah.
So I have the wireless one. So
Wow.
hmm
And so for children, is that what children have now?
a lot of kids have the what do you call it? The insulin pump.
So do you think having to go down to the nurse's office and give yourself a shot doesn't really happen as much anymore?
No, because you can just do it from your like little diabetes phone.
That's wonderful.
That's amazing.
No, that's a really positive thing
It is.
for children. Now, do you have you come across people with diabetes in nursing since you've been going in the ICU?
Oh, yeah.
Or
I feel like every day I see somebody who's it's called DKA, but it's diabetic ketoacidosis.
okay,
I feel like I see somebody that's in that all the time, which just means your blood sugar is like high for such a high amount of time that there's so much acidity in your body, and it's eating away at like anything it can, fat. Sometimes when it gets really bad, like organs. It's
In that scenario, are you seeing like amputations then? Or-
I have seen amputations. It just depends. It sounds bad, but unfortunately, it's like mostly only type 2
yeah.
diabetes.
that's what I thought.
And I always feel bad saying that because there's that stigma around it when it's like it shouldn't be like that. But that's the only time I really ever see it. And it's never like, I've never seen like a full leg amputation or anything.
Yeah.
It's like toes
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
the time. Just
Yeah.
people with no toes. I'm like, damn.
So that's mainly type 2.
Mm-hmm.
And am I wrong? And I'm probably gonna get hate for this, but am I wrong that to sum up type 2 is people eat themselves into type 2?
Pretty much. It can come from drinking too much as well.
Okay.
But yeah, most of the time it's
Consumption.
just your
Probably
body just
dietary.
yeah, it's overconsumption. Your body just can't keep up with as much that you're putting in.
Bad things.
Yeah.
That-
Well, like food. Like you could just eat a lot of sugar and just
It's
Right,
a metabolic
right. Yeah.
disorder that people don't address.
exactly.
You know?
Well, I know Brian at times
Hell yeah.
has gotten had diagnosed with pre-metabolic
Mm-hmm.
in his annual checkups, and that's when
Yeah.
he changes everything.
Well, what you do, you
Exactly.
get your high cholesterol, high blood pressure, high sugar, your triglycerides are wrong, and you Google it, and it's
Mhm.
like, shit, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
I've got 5 years to live, but if I lose weight and I cut out carbs and I don't drink, and you can kind of reverse
You can
it,
reverse it.
100%.
That's the beautiful thing. Like if you're borderline type 2, you can easily fix
Yeah.
that.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then once you are on insulin with type 2, can you reverse it then?
They say you can.
Mhm.
It's just a very tricky slope. Like you
Mhm.
could fall right back in.
Yeah.
Like, so your pancreas can like once again like pick back up. Pick back up and like work again, but then you fall down that hole again. And
Yeah.
It's completely within your control.
Yeah.
That might piss people off too, but I can tell you, I've been in that pre-diabetic metabolic syndrome
Mhm.
before. If you exercise and eat better, you can correct your numbers.
Exactly.
just the reality.
He doesn't want to be on medication.
Yeah.
So that's what motivates him.
I wouldn't blame you if you don't want to be on type 2 medication. It's terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. He has
and
family
legit,
members.
people do start getting their toes cut off, and then it goes up to your knee, then it's your leg, and
and from there
real.
on, it's the other leg.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
So with type 1, as long as you monitor everything, then you're good to go.
Pretty much, yeah. You always have to, like, type 1, you just, I don't know how to say this. Like, it's, I always call it the better one because you can kind of play with your numbers. When you're type 2, you take that, I don't really know if type 2 diabetics take fast acting insulin. I know I do. That's what I like live off of is this fast acting. So it just acts really fast, like within 15 minutes. And so I can kind of play with my numbers. If I want my numbers to stay in a certain place, I'll just take a certain amount of insulin. I don't know how it is for type 2 people.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
No clue.
Okay. And what about as far as having children and stuff? Does type 1 affect reproductivity or?
So pretty much they just warn you that like if you are going to have a kid, you have to keep your numbers pretty like controlled.
Okay.
Like they have to be like I want to say like in the low 100. Like you can get to like upper hundreds, but like they want you to stay in that like 100 range. But the thing about it is like when you the further along you go in your pregnancy,
Yeah.
the more you get insulin resistance, so then your numbers are always high.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah. And also, if you have type 1, are you more prone to gestational diabetes?
Well, you already have diabetes, so then
Oh, yeah, I guess so. It's not, yeah.
it is
Okay.
gestational.
So it is gestational. Right. That's a redundant question.
Yeah.
So, because I know for the people that get that that didn't have it, then is it more of like a type 2 thing they're getting?
It's crazy though. Some people, they get gestational diabetes and it leads to type 1 diabetes where their pancreas just shuts off.
Even when they're just during the pregnancy or even
after the pregnancy, they give birth, that pancreas never starts again.
Really?
I've seen people that happen to people and I'm like, oh my God.
Wow.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, right? Wow, that's so interesting.
It's almost like your thyroid, I think, right? Your thyroid doesn't really work that well.
At all.
Yeah.
Mine doesn't.
So you have like type 1 thyroid.
Yeah.
The equivalent.
Yeah, I have to take medicine every morning.
Yeah.
To replace what my thyroid doesn't produce.
Exactly.
Because mine is gone.
Oh.
Because I have Hashimoto's too.
Oh, okay.
So it's like
it's
a fun time.
little life.
Fun little life. So I did want to ask you for Gen Z, my impression of Gen Z women is they have a very strong girlhood. I feel like Gen Z women are in general very women supporting women vibe. Has that been your experience? And now that you're in your 20s, not through your adolescent years.
Okay, now that I'm in my 20s.
Now that you're in your 20s.
It's a lot better. Yeah. I think that there are a lot more women supporting women than back in the day. I feel like more people were a little hateful back when like social media first started coming around. I was like, oh, everybody's judging it. I'm not saying it's good now. I mean, it's so crazy, but it's a little better. Like
if you, for example, if you were going into a restaurant or a bar and you saw a girl with a cute outfit, would your first initial feeling be, oh my gosh, that's such a cute outfit? Or would it be, oh my gosh, I have to compete with her?
Oh, it would be the first one. I think that's a cute outfit.
Okay, so for Gen X women, our first thing was always, I have to compete with her.
Yeah.
We never looked at another woman and we're like, that's so cute. We were like, shit, like she looks better than me. Yeah. And I think that's I don't know what that is about you guys, but that's what I mean. In general, you kind of are able to appreciate each other and not immediately put each other down.
Exactly.
And I think it's so cool.
I see my mom's friends and they're so judgy. Oh my God. I'm like, you guys.
Yes. And we're not boomers because your mom is a Gen Xer, right? Yeah. We're not boomers because that's a whole nother level of judgment. Because we are loving and we're caring and thoughtful and generous, but I have gotten past that, but I do know that about myself and my generation as women. We have not been known to be big women supporting women, and I think your generation is changing the narrative on that. It's
I think
really
it has
cool.
gotten better with social media, especially because you like go on TikTok and you see all these girls just like hyping each other up.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, that's great.
It's awesome. I love to see it. So, what's your approach to goal setting? Like, would you say you're the type that in 5 years I want to be here, in 3 years I want to be here, or how do you tackle that?
So I I'm actually the worst with goal setting. I will try to set like short-term goals instead of long-term goals because I don't know where I'm going to be in 5 years. No idea.
Yeah.
And I think that stems from my childhood where I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to take it one step at a time. So
Yeah.
I kind of always start small and be like, okay, this month I want to try to like read more. And that's my goal for this month. And then I'll kind of do that month to month. Like this month is I want to go to the gym more because I used to be really into the gym and then I stopped. I don't know why, but I just one day was like, I'm over
It happens. It happens to all of
I don't
us.
want to go to the
think.
gym anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, that happens. That's a great approach. And because then it's realistic.
Yeah, I'm not going to disappoint myself if I'm like, in 5 years, I want to be this crazy, great person with all this money. And then I'm not.
Right, right. Yeah. And I'm sure it does stem back to a little bit of the instability that you grew up with and maybe not trusting 5 years from now.
Kind of like nothing's promised kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you're like, but today is.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm going to tackle today.
Exactly.
No, that's great. So so your goal this month is the gym. And so you haven't looked to next month yet. You're just tackling this month.
Yeah. I take it one step at a time. I'm the worst.
I love it. I love it. Now, is Alex a goal setter?
Like I want to say yes, but he's probably going to say no. Like he'll have a goal like for this year. I just want to like knock my numbers out of the park for work or something like that.
Right.
But besides that, I haven't really heard of anything. I know he has this like step-by-step plan to get married. It's hilarious. Oh my God.
Are you part of that plan?
Yeah.
Okay,
He
good.
said before we even get engaged, okay, this is my step-by-step plan. 1,
Wow.
I have to have a big boy job. I said, okay. He goes, 2, we have to get a dog. And I go, okay. And 3, we have to buy a house. And then I'll propose to you.
Oh my goodness. I
like,
love it. That is goal setting.
That is.
That is what
he
you
knows
want.
what he wants.
Yes.
And I'm like, I can't shit on it.
No, that is goal setting. And those are all very realistic and rational goals to success. And you guys are living. I always tell people, if you're even considering marrying someone, you need to live together. You have to.
Oh, totally.
I don't know how people are like getting engaged. First of all, one of my friends just got engaged. She was together with him for like 9 months. I was like, that's terrifying.
You don't even
They're
totally
not even living
know.
together. I'm like, this is scary.
That's a risk. That's a risky situation there.
I was like, good luck.
Yeah.
I have a question though on the goal setting. One thing in one of our episodes that came up, we did a short on it and got a ton of activity around just the corporate environment and people shitting on corporate. But like what you're doing is you're working 2 jobs plus going to school. So in spite of not being a big goal setter, that's a goal. And where I'm going is when we ended that episode, it was like people are really struggling in the corporate world, and they're like, well, what the hell do you do? Because I don't want to go corporate. But I think one of the answers is you work your ass off, and then you're doing that. And how did you get into that mode where, because you're grinding, and it is the way to get ahead. It's the way to what you do at your age. How did that happen? Did you fall into it? You set some goals?
So I think what was happening is over the last year, I realized that when I was just working at the restaurant that I was like living kind of an unhealthy lifestyle, like going out way more with my coworkers and staying out super late, waking up super late in the day. And just, I felt kind of like drawn down at all times. I was just like, oh, I feel terrible at all times. And then I remember Alex, I don't know, he just said something to me one day and he was like, you know what, you need a big girl job. And I was like, no, I don't. That sounds terrifying. No, thank you. And then I was like, I'll apply to this hospital. And if they accept me, they accept me. And unfortunately, they did.
Wow.
And then I had a set schedule and I was like, all right, I'm going to work 5 days a week and I'm going to have my 2 days off and I'm going to call it a day. And that's what I do. And I kind of just like look at my like Friday as like the best day of the week. I'm like, this is great. I can't wait. So I don't know. With school being involved in all of that, it's kind of like, I don't know. It all just flows together now. Like, I don't know how I've made it work. I'm going to be honest.
It's a lot.
Finally made it work.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot, but you're doing it. So
for the longest time, I was just giving up shifts and just sitting at home, just playing video games. And I was like, oh God, I got to stop doing this.
No, it's almost like you reached a point where you made a decision and to change the trajectory of your life, and you did.
Exactly.
And like Brian said, that is goal setting.
Yeah.
You did set maybe it was subconscious goal setting.
I think it was.
Yeah, but you did it. So are your grandparents still alive? And how do they feel about where you're at now?
They love it. They think well, at first they were a little iffy when I moved in with my boyfriend. They were like, you're not married. Okay.
Right.
First of all. And,
and they're still Mormon, right?
Yeah.
How old are they?
My grandpa's turning 79 this year. My grandma is probably 78.
Okay,
I want to
cool.
say.
They're still relatively young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They act like it too. My grandpa's retired like 5 times.
Oh, that's
He's
great.
so funny.
That's
That's
awesome.
great.
He just keeps going back to Lowe's. He loves Lowe's. And
That's
they
great.
keep inviting him back. So hey, take it.
That's awesome.
But yeah, they're pretty supportive. They love Alex. Oh my God, don't even get me started. My grandma will text me and be like, "No, just how's Alex?" Like,
I love it.
you
I
know?
love it. And then how does your mom feel about where you're at?
Oh, she's really, really proud of me, especially with like me being so close to getting into nursing school. She's like, finally.
Yeah. Yeah. And how does she feel about Alex?
She loves Alex too. She's like
wonderful.
his number one supporter too, because they're both in business.
Okay.
And so, when he was like applying to all of these jobs fresh out of college, she like sat on the phone with him for hours and built his resume.
That's
cool.
wonderful.
Oh my God, it was crazy. I was like, wow,
That's
good.
great. And things with Lee?
Things with Lee are great.
Yeah?
I look at him as like my real dad now because I put my other dad aside, and I was
Yeah.
like, he was never truly there for me. So, and we learned that the hard way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I look at Lee as like my real dad now, and I tell everybody that he's my stepdad, but I look at him as like
Yeah.
the real deal.
And he's happy with where you're at in your
Mhm.
life right now.
Yeah,
and
he's
supportive.
he's like the person that you could call at 2 a.m. and he'll pick up the phone. Like
Yeah.
he always is like the best.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about yourself?
I'm really proud of where I've come from because I know it's been a rocky road.
You should be.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's hard to say about ourselves.
hmm
So,
I hated myself for the longest time. I was like, I'm not doing anything. I'm not going anywhere. And then I swear, like Alex putting like getting into my life and telling me like, you got to like work your ass off to get what you want. I just like opened my eyes. I was like, whoa.
yeah. Yeah. And it gave
Having
you.
a supportive partner is very important too.
It is
Oh,
so
totally.
important.
Yeah.
No, I'll be the first to say, Brian, he knows it. I've said he saved me. Like
Yeah.
I don't know where I would be if he hadn't entered my life. And
Do
it's important to have the right partner.
you feel like Alex saved you
Yeah.
in that sense?
100%. I was at a very low place. I mean, I came from that relationship where it was just so terrible. And then I was just like always down on myself and not thinking I was going anywhere, doing anything with my life. And he came in and he kind of just made my point of view completely different.
Yeah.
And I thank him all the time. Still to this day, I'm like, you literally changed my life. Like, you have no
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. And also, he's proven that he is a safe place for you and you can
Mhm.
trust him,
Yeah,
and to get to that point is huge.
it is.
So, and you guys will always have that.
Mhm.
No matter if, let's say you do get married and all that, you'll
Mhm.
always have that bond of respect,
Yeah.
understanding of each other. And I think that marriage has ups and downs, but that's what will get you through is having that foundation. It sounds like you guys already have that, and it's so important.
It is.
It really is.
It's so important.
and
If
you
you don't
should-
have that foundation, you're screwed.
You're screwed. And it's almost like I always say friendship before you get married is important.
Mhm.
But what you guys have created is friendship within your relationship.
Mhm.
And friendship is what maintains respect.
Exactly.
And that is what will make the relationship last. Because you have to respect each other truly.
you have to.
So, and you should be so proud of yourself.
I am. Now
you
I
really
am.
should
Yeah.
be. Yeah. I mean, everything you've gone through.
Do you want to have kids?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I go back and forth all the time, but like I'm pretty set on it now where, yeah, I think I'm getting to the age where I'm not terrified of children anymore.
Yeah.
Because when I was younger, I was like, oh God, I
Yeah.
don't want to be caught dead with one of those things. But now,
Yeah.
now
yeah.
I'm like to the age where I'm like, I could see kids, not anytime soon,
No.
but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can see it happening.
Yeah. No. And definitely take your time.
Oh,
and you guys
100%.
take your time. And
No rush. Remember, we got to get through his 5-step plan. First.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
right.
Yeah. Alex has his plan.
Yeah.
And you have nursing school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We got stuff going on.
Yeah.
first.
But I will be curious if you look into trauma at all.
I want to, because ever since I started working in the ICU, I mean, I went from labor and delivery to the complete opposite of like
Yeah.
babies. So,
It's true.
I know down the line, if I wanted to go back to school and become a nurse practitioner, I'd want to become a diabetic educator to teach kids kind of like all about diabetes and kind of what that nurse practitioner did for me. So that's kind of like if I go back to school after this,
Mm-hmm.
that's my goal.
That's a goal.
There you go.
Mhm.
You just,
There we
just
go.
fell into
See,
the
you-
Look at
trap.
me.
You don't think you're goal
I
oriented,
know.
but you are.
I know.
That's
just
funny.
sometimes saying it,
No.
like planning it is it can be overwhelming, but that's what's gotten you
I like keep
so
it a
far.
secret from myself.
Yeah. You bury
Push it
that down
down.
too.
Push it
Push it
down.
Listen, we can't thank you enough,
Yeah.
honestly, for coming and sharing your story.
Absolutely.
I think you're very inspiring. And I think that, especially to other women, young women, or any teenage girls or boys that hear your story,
Mhm.
it could be just the thing to help them hold on.
Mhm.
Because as you know, I'm sure there's some desolate moments during times like
Oh my
that.
gosh, yeah.
And sometimes people just need to hear that from someone who's gone through that, hey, there's life after this.
There is.
And you have to trust in that and just get through it.
Mhm.
Because especially those teenage years, every day is every day. And they don't see
Exactly.
tomorrow.
Mhm.
Actually, have you ever thought of like counseling or anything?
Like going to counseling or
No,
becoming
no,
a
no.
counselor?
I mean, I think you have a lot to offer the
Mhm.
world and kids who come through your situation.
Mhm.
I think you could do anything you put your mind to.
Mhm.
Have you ever considered working with teens or,
I
getting
did for a
into that?
while. I did. I wanted to be, when I first like started college, I was like, I want to be a psychiatrist. I really
Mhm.
do. And then I was like, no, I don't.
Yeah.
Because I took psychology my first year of college, and I was like, this is terrible. It's like a mind bend. And I was like,
Oh, yeah.
can't do this. It's like, I'm going to stick with nursing though. And like, I mean,
Yeah.
I could go into psychiatric nursing though.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think that like in my path, there will be a point where I can do like some sort of counseling work, because I think I do have a lot of knowledge about like
Mhm.
how, like what's next after your traumatic experience.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, is like when you're that young and you go through so much stuff, you're like always like, when is something good going to happen to me?
Yeah.
And I feel like I could be a light for kids and be like, listen, it's terrible now. I get it. But like,
Yeah.
it's going to get a lot better.
Definitely. I agree. And even as a nurse, I feel you could probably go and talk to kids,
Mm-hmm.
even
Yeah.
whether it's in schools, like assemblies or
Might
something.
be a nice balance, because once you do get into that counseling world, you start to rehash the stuff you push down. You might want to keep it there.
Exactly.
You have to bring it back up.
Yeah.
May not be the way to go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's
You
not
have
a
to
bad
wait
idea.
and see.
Yeah.
I know when I really started forcing myself to unpack was when I became a mother,
Yeah.
because you don't want to project your shit onto them. So you're like, oh, I got to heal this so I don't push it on. And so that becomes a big motivator. So, but you have that way down the line.
Yeah, I know.
So you have time. You have time. You got to go through Alex's plan
Yeah,
first.
we got a
so.
step-by-step list.
But again, thank you so much for, sharing everything and trusting us with your story. It's so inspiring, and we're so excited to see. We do want to have you back in a few years and
don't you
see
worry.
where you are.
I'll be back.
Whether you set those goals or not, you are setting
I
them.
know.
So we will see where you're at. And again, thank you for sharing
Yeah, thank you.
everything
Of
with our
course.
listeners,
Awesome.
because again, I think that it's going to be very meaningful for a lot of people. So
Yeah, I think so too.
thank
excited.
you.
Of
And good
course.
luck to you guys. And maybe next time we see you, there will be a dog
Hopefully.
we can hear about.
We'll know you're
so-
getting closer.
Yeah,
know.
the
Yeah.
dog
If
will
you
be.
hear we get a dog,
Check that step.
that's check 2. Okay.
You're 66% of the way, or no, 40%.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you to our listeners for listening. And if you have any comments or questions, we always love to hear from you. And thank you again, Brooke, for your story.
Absolutely.
We'll
Thank
see you
guys.
next time.
Thank you.
Bye.